In the quiet corners of history, there are stories that defy explanation, enigmas that refuse to be solved, mysteries that linger in the shadows of time. What if the truth is more elusive than we can comprehend? What if the answers we seek are buried in places we've yet to find? Tonight, we delve into 3 hours of the most bizarre and unexplainable events, where logic and reason seem to vanish, leaving only questions. From vanished civilizations to inexplicable phenomena, join us as we uncover the strange, the unfathomable, and the utterly bewildering. Prepare to question everything. Deep in the heart of the dense jungles of Guatemala, hidden away from the bustling world outside, lies a tomb that has captivated historians, archaeologists, and adventurers alike. It is known as the Tomb of the Red Queen, a name that evokes images of ancient royalty, lost treasures, and dark secrets buried for centuries. Tucked within the ruins of the ancient Maya city of Palenque, the tomb is one of the most enigmatic discoveries of modern archaeology, and yet, despite years of study, it remains shrouded in mystery. The tomb itself is not just a burial chamber. It is a window into a distant, almost forgotten world, a world that flourished long before the rise of empires and civilizations that we know today. The Maya, an advanced civilization that reached its peak in the 7th century BC, built grand cities with towering temples and sophisticated art, mathematics, and astronomy. But it is within the walls of these stone ruins that the story of the Red Queen has left its most haunting mark. The tomb was discovered in 1994 by the Mexican archaeologist Arnoldo González Cruz and his team. It was located in the Temple of the Inscriptions, a pyramid that looms over the city, its stepped structure a testament to the grandeur of the civilization that once ruled here. As the archaeologists carefully dug through the earth, they uncovered a crypt hidden deep within the structure, a crypt unlike any other found at Palenque. Inside, they found the remains of a woman lying in state, her body adorned with a lavish array of jade jewelry and textiles that had long since decayed. But what truly set this burial apart was the vivid red color that clung to her bones. The body had been covered in a layer of red pigment, a substance that is believed to have had powerful symbolic and spiritual significance for the Maya. Red was the color of life, of blood, and of power, and to be buried in red was to be elevated to the realm of the divine. But why was this woman, who has come to be known as the Red Queen, entombed with such reverence? And who was she? The identity of the Red Queen remains a subject of intense speculation. Some scholars believe she was a queen consort, perhaps the wife of a ruler, while others suggest she could have been a high priestess or a figure of religious importance. The most widely accepted theory is that she was a member of the royal family, perhaps the wife of King Pakal the Great, one of the most famous rulers of the city of Palenque. Pakal himself is buried in the nearby Temple of the Inscriptions, and the two tombs share similarities in their construction and decoration, leading many to believe that the Red Queen's tomb may have been part of a larger burial complex for the royal family. But even this theory does not answer all the questions. The tomb's placement within the temple is curious. Why was she buried so far from the main royal burial site? And why the lavish red pigment, which seems to suggest something beyond the mere status of a consort or noblewoman? One of the most intriguing elements of the Red Queen's tomb is the presence of numerous objects that suggest a deep connection to the supernatural and the afterlife. Jade, often associated with life and fertility, was placed in abundance, as were ceramics and other offerings that may have been meant to accompany her in the next world. There were also traces of cinnabar, a toxic mineral known for its use in ritualistic contexts. These materials are often seen as symbols of transition, tools to help guide the soul on its journey after death. But there are no written records that explain the full significance of the tomb or the woman entombed within it. The Maya left behind an intricate system of hieroglyphs, but none of the surviving inscriptions provide direct information about the Red Queen's identity or her role in the city's political or religious life. It is possible that the answers to these questions were lost when Palenque fell into decline, or that they were intentionally hidden, preserved only for those who knew the proper rituals to access the ancient knowledge. Some theories venture into more speculative territory. Some believe that the Red Queen was not just a royal consort or priestess, but a figure whose death may have been linked to a powerful ritual intended to ensure the prosperity and protection of the city. The Maya believed in the cyclical nature of life and death, and some suggest that the Red Queen may have been part of a larger ritual sacrifice to the gods, designed to invoke their favor in a time of political unrest or natural disaster. Others have suggested that the tomb may have been designed as a symbolic representation of the underworld, a place where the soul would journey after death. The color red, so prevalent in the tomb, is often associated with the underworld in Maya mythology. Could it be that the Red Queen was being prepared for an afterlife that was as powerful and mysterious as the life she had lived? Could her burial have been a message, encoded in the symbols of her tomb, that we have yet to fully understand? As with so many ancient mysteries, the more we learn, the more questions arise. The discovery of the Red Queen's tomb has opened up new avenues of research, but it has also deepened the enigma of the Maya civilization. Why did the Maya go to such lengths to bury their dead in such elaborate ways? What did they believe about the afterlife? And how did they see their rulers and religious figures as mediators between the living and the divine? The tomb of the Red Queen offers us a glimpse into a world that has long since vanished, a world where power, ritual, and the mysteries of life and death were intertwined in ways we can barely comprehend. And yet, despite all the research, despite the advances in archaeology, there is still much that remains unknown. The Red Queen, her identity, her significance, and the secrets she carried with her into the afterlife are still waiting to be uncovered. Is it possible that the answers to these questions are hidden, not in the tomb itself, but in the forgotten corners of Palenque, or perhaps in the rituals of the Maya that we have yet to fully decipher? What lies beyond the walls of the tomb, waiting to reveal itself? For now, these are mysteries that continue to tantalize, and perhaps, just perhaps, they will remain unsolved for a little longer. As we continue our journey through the most enigmatic corners of history, we turn now to a place where the past seems to hold its breath, waiting for the mysteries to be uncovered. After exploring the ancient burial sites of the Maya, we now find ourselves on the banks of the Nile, in a land where the weight of millennia hangs heavy in the desert air. It is here, in the vast necropolis of Saqqara, that one of Egypt's most curious and cryptic tombs stands, the Mastaba of Shepseskaf. A mastaba, an ancient Egyptian burial structure, is not as grand as the iconic pyramids of Giza, but it carries its own mystique. Lower to the ground, rectangular in shape, with steep sloping sides, these tombs were built for the elite and the royals who sought to be remembered by future generations. But unlike the towering pyramids of Egypt's more famous pharaohs, Shepseskaf's tomb, though large and impressive, leaves many questions unanswered, and its very existence has puzzled archaeologists for centuries. Shepseskaf, the last ruler of Egypt's 4th dynasty, reigned for a relatively short period during the 25th century BC. His name, though significant, does not resonate as strongly as those of other pharaohs, like Khufu, who oversaw the construction of the Great Pyramid. Yet, Shepseskaf's tomb at Saqqara stands as a testament to his unusual place in Egypt's history. Unlike many of his predecessors, who were buried in grand pyramids, Shepseskaf chose a different approach. His tomb, now called the Mastaba of Shepseskaf, stands as one of the most perplexing monuments of ancient Egypt. The mastaba is made of limestone, its exterior rough and unadorned, but its interior tells a different story. Inside, scholars have uncovered elaborate reliefs that tell of Shepseskaf's life, and the tomb itself is structured in a way that suggests a strong connection to the gods and the afterlife. Yet there is something distinctively peculiar about Shepseskaf's final resting place. While most pharaohs sought to elevate their tombs into monumental pyramids that reached toward the heavens, Shepseskaf's mastaba remains firmly grounded, its form deliberately low to the earth. Why would a ruler of such stature, one who wielded immense power over Egypt, reject the tradition of pyramid building? Could there have been reasons beyond the practicalities of construction or material costs? Was there something deeper, perhaps spiritual, that led Shepseskaf to make this decision? Historians and archaeologists have long speculated on this. Some believe it was a purely practical decision. After all, by Shepseskaf's time, the immense cost and labor of building a pyramid had likely become a daunting task. Egypt was in the midst of social and political shifts, and it's possible that a change in economic conditions may have led Shepseskaf to forego the pyramid in favor of a simpler but no less impressive tomb. But the question remains, why this particular choice? Could Shepseskaf have been signaling a shift in Egypt's religious or philosophical views? Egypt's religious beliefs were centered around the divine and eternal nature of the pharaoh, and the transition from the pyramidal structures to the mastaba may have reflected a deep spiritual change. Was Shepseskaf's decision symbolic, a reflection of a ruler who saw himself as still part of the land, deeply connected to his people, and not just an immortal god? Or was there something more, something hidden beneath the surface, about the reasons for the simpler burial that we have yet to fully comprehend? In exploring the Mastaba of Shepseskaf, we also encounter a deeper layer of mystery, the tomb's strange, unfinished nature. Unlike the meticulously crafted tombs of Egypt's other rulers, Shepseskaf's tomb appears incomplete, as though the work had been abruptly halted. The burial chamber itself, though lavish, contains fewer inscriptions than would be expected for a royal tomb. No grand burial pyramid, no elaborate network of chambers filled with treasures or offerings, only a stark, unembellished space. Could this be an indication of a sudden end to Shepseskaf's reign? Was he overthrown or perhaps struck down by an illness or assassination before he could see his tomb completed? The lack of any clear records explaining his death only deepens this possibility. Despite his relatively short reign, Shepseskaf's legacy remains clouded by the incomplete nature of his tomb and the absence of significant historical records from the end of his rule. Some theories suggest that the unfinished nature of the tomb could have been due to unforeseen circumstances, such as war or political upheaval. Egypt, during Shepseskaf's time, was transitioning from the strong centralized power of the early 4th dynasty to the more fragmented political climate of the late Old Kingdom. Was Shepseskaf caught in the midst of a turbulent time, unable to complete his final resting place because of external forces beyond his control? Others have suggested that the unusual design of the mastaba and the lack of typical royal funerary texts point to a more metaphysical reason. Could the abandonment of the pyramid have been a deliberate attempt to break from tradition and assert a new kind of royal identity? Was Shepseskaf, perhaps, trying to redefine what it meant to be a ruler in the afterlife? This theory might point to a deeper spiritual or philosophical shift in Egypt at the time, one that we have yet to fully grasp. The peculiar nature of Shepseskaf's tomb has led to fringe theories as well, some of which propose that the mastaba's design could have had a symbolic meaning tied to celestial alignments or astronomical events. Did Shepseskaf believe that his tomb would be a conduit between the earthly realm and the gods, channeling power from the heavens in ways that were not immediately visible to us? The positioning of the tomb, its location in Saqqara, and its stark simplicity have led some to speculate about its possible alignment with celestial bodies or other mystical phenomena, though there is no concrete evidence to support such claims. Regardless of the theories, The tomb of Shepseskaf remains one of Egypt's most mysterious funerary monuments. It holds within its walls a deeper mystery, a ruler who chose an unconventional burial, an unfinished tomb, and a form that does not match the grandeur of his contemporaries. It is a reminder that even in a civilization as well documented as ancient Egypt, there are still vast gaps in our understanding. Was Shepseskaf a king who simply chose a different path, or was he a ruler caught in the throes of an uncertain era, with his tomb reflecting the complex interplay of power, religion, and the forces of fate? What could the unusual nature of his burial reveal about the shifting spiritual beliefs of ancient Egypt? As we stand before the Mastaba of Shepseskaf, we can't help but wonder what might still be hidden in the dust of time. What secrets lie buried, waiting to be uncovered? As we leave the dry sands of Saqqara behind and continue our exploration of history's most bizarre mysteries, the unanswered questions of Shepseskaf's tomb linger in the air, like a whisper from the past, urging us to dig deeper, to look beyond the surface. As we continue our exploration of some of the most intriguing and mysterious discoveries in history, we now turn to one of the most enigmatic objects ever unearthed in the ancient city of Alexandria. Hidden beneath the bustling streets of modern-day Egypt, a stone sarcophagus has stirred up a storm of curiosity, fear, and speculation. Known as the Black Sarcophagus, its discovery in 2018 sparked a wave of fascination across the world, not only because of its size and intricacy, but also because of the many questions it raised, questions that still remain unanswered. The sarcophagus itself, carved from solid black granite, is a massive, imposing structure. Standing nearly 6 feet tall and weighing several tons, it exudes a cold, almost otherworldly aura. Its surface, dark and smooth, has been worn down over centuries, but its monumental shape still commands attention. The sarcophagus was discovered by a team of Egyptian archaeologists working in Alexandria, near the ancient site of the city's catacombs. The burial chamber was not merely a tomb, but an imposing structure, whose sheer weight and craftsmanship suggest that whoever was laid to rest within it was someone of great importance. When the sarcophagus was first unearthed, it was sealed tightly, with no immediate indication of its contents. In fact, the archaeologists were unsure whether it had been looted in the past or whether it had remained undisturbed for over 2,000 years. Speculation swirled, with some wondering whether it could be the final resting place of an ancient ruler, perhaps from the Ptolemaic dynasty, or even the tomb of a high-ranking priest. But there was a far more immediate question on everyone's minds: what might be inside? When the sarcophagus was finally opened, it revealed a gruesome surprise. Inside, the remains of 3 individuals, 2 men and a woman, were found, their bodies submerged in a thick, viscous liquid. The liquid, a dark and murky substance, appeared to be a mix of water and decomposing matter. This finding only deepened the mystery surrounding the tomb. The bodies, although remarkably well preserved, were surrounded by a strange and pungent odor, leading many to speculate on the unusual preservation methods that might have been employed. Why were these 3 individuals buried together, and why were their bodies so carefully preserved? The Ptolemaic rulers, known for their elaborate burial rituals and grandiose tombs, would typically have had elaborate embalming processes. But this tomb, with its dark and forbidding exterior, suggested something different, something more hidden, more obscure. Some archaeologists have suggested that the thick liquid in the sarcophagus could have been an intentional part of the embalming process. The ancient Egyptians were known to use various substances in the mummification process, including resins and oils, but the use of a substance that could cause such an overwhelming odor has led to further questions. Was this some kind of protective fluid designed to preserve the bodies? Or was it a ritualistic offering, a way to ensure that the deceased were safeguarded in the afterlife? What is truly remarkable about the discovery of the Black Sarcophagus is the fact that no inscriptions were found within it, no hieroglyphs or markings that might indicate the identity of the deceased. This absence of written evidence has led to a slew of theories about the tomb's origins. Some believe that the individuals inside the sarcophagus could have been high-ranking officials or religious figures, perhaps buried during a time when Egypt was ruled by foreign powers. Others have speculated that the tomb could belong to a private individual, someone whose identity was considered too sacred to be revealed, or whose name was deliberately obscured by the passage of time. In the wake of the discovery, social media quickly exploded with theories and rumors, many of which leaned into the more sensational aspects of the sarcophagus. Some even linked it to ancient curses, with the idea that opening the tomb might unleash a terrible fate upon those who disturbed it. This type of speculation, though fascinating, only added to the aura of mystery surrounding the sarcophagus. But in the quiet halls of academic research, the focus has remained on the deeper, unanswered questions. Why was the tomb sealed so tightly? Why were the bodies placed together in such an unusual manner? And, perhaps most perplexing of all, why was no identity ever recorded? Could there have been a religious or cultural reason for this anonymity? Some scholars have suggested that the decision to leave the tomb unmarked may have had spiritual significance. In ancient Egypt, the afterlife was a deeply personal journey, and the identity of the deceased was often thought to matter less than the rituals and protections surrounding their burial. Could it be that these individuals were part of a secretive sect or cult, their names deliberately erased to ensure they would pass into eternity without the attention of the outside world? Or perhaps the tomb was not intended for a king or queen, but for a more obscure figure, someone whose story has been lost to time, yet whose final resting place still raises questions about the society that buried them. The theories do not stop there. Some have speculated that the tomb's dark, foreboding appearance and the strange preservation of the bodies could indicate that the individuals buried inside were not of Egyptian origin at all. Could they have been foreigners or even invaders, their burial rites and rituals different from those of the native Egyptians? This idea is compounded by the fact that Alexandria, a city founded by Alexander the Great, was a melting pot of different cultures, a place where ancient Greek, Egyptian, and Persian influences mingled. The possibility that this tomb could represent a cross-cultural blending of rituals adds yet another layer to the mystery. Then there is the more outlandish theory, one that has captured the public imagination. Could the sarcophagus be connected to some form of ancient power, one that was deliberately sealed away to prevent its discovery? Could the bodies inside hold the key to unlocking an ancient secret, one that was hidden to protect it from being exploited or misused in the future? Was the tomb intentionally sealed to prevent something far more dangerous from being uncovered? While these ideas may seem far-fetched, they touch on a theme that permeates many of history's most bizarre mysteries: the fear of what lies hidden beneath the surface, whether it be an ancient curse, a forgotten power, or a dark secret that was meant to remain buried forever. As we reflect on the black sarcophagus of Alexandria, one thing becomes clear: its discovery has raised as many questions as it has answered. The mystery of the tomb remains unsolved, a testament to the complex and often unknowable nature of ancient history. We may never know the true identity of the individuals buried within, or why they were placed in such a peculiar and unsettling tomb. But perhaps the greatest mystery of all is why the sarcophagus itself was hidden for so long, its secrets waiting to be uncovered, only to reveal more questions in its wake. What still lies hidden beneath the layers of time? What other dark mysteries are buried in the sands of Alexandria, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered? As we move from one unsolved enigma to another, we leave behind the sun-drenched sands of Alexandria and step into the icy, desolate expanse of Antarctica, a place so remote, so inhospitable, that it has remained one of the last great frontiers of mystery on Earth. In the endless stretch of snow and ice, where few dare to venture, a startling claim has emerged. Beneath the thick layers of ice, there may be structures, geometric formations, and even pyramids, giant, ancient monuments that defy explanation. The story begins in 2001, when a satellite image from the European Space Agency, captured over the frigid plains of Antarctica, revealed something startling. A series of sharp, angular formations were visible beneath the ice, resembling the shape of a pyramid. Though the imagery was inconclusive, it sparked a firestorm of speculation among researchers, conspiracy theorists, and enthusiasts alike. Could this be the discovery of an ancient civilization hidden in the frozen heart of the Earth? The location in question lies in the Ellsworth Mountains, an isolated region within Antarctica that is largely unexplored. It is one of the highest and most remote areas on the continent, with temperatures that can plunge as low as -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Few people have ventured here, and even fewer have been able to study the land in detail. Yet, beneath its icy veneer, scientists believe that the region holds an untapped treasure trove of geological and environmental secrets, many of which remain obscured by the thick blanket of snow and ice that covers much of the continent. For most of human history, Antarctica was nothing more than a distant, unknowable landmass, an inhospitable expanse of ice and snow. But as the world began to probe deeper into the frozen wilderness, technology advanced, and satellite imaging became more sophisticated. Previously unseen features of the land began to emerge. Among these features, the mysterious pyramid-shaped structures are perhaps the most intriguing. The idea that a pyramid could exist in Antarctica might seem improbable at first glance. Pyramids, after all, are closely associated with ancient civilizations: Egypt, Central America, and the Near East. How could such a structure appear in one of the most isolated and inhospitable places on Earth? Could these pyramids be the work of an ancient civilization that predated all known cultures, one that existed in a time when Antarctica was not covered by ice? And if so, what kind of civilization would have been capable of constructing such immense structures so far removed from the warmth of the equator? Theories abound. The mainstream explanation for these pyramid-like shapes is, unsurprisingly, geological. Some experts suggest that these formations are simply natural structures created by tectonic forces, erosion, or other natural processes. In this view, the pyramid shapes are mere coincidence, and the apparent symmetry is the result of natural phenomena that have shaped the Antarctic landscape over millions of years. Yet, the mystery deepens when we consider the nature of the formations. Satellite images of the so-called pyramids show sharp edges and angles that seem almost too perfect, too deliberate to be entirely the result of erosion. Some of the shapes resemble not only pyramids, but also massive structures, as if designed by intelligent beings, structures with angles, surfaces, and proportions that suggest a deliberate construction rather than a random geological event. For those who entertain more speculative theories, the pyramids beneath the ice of Antarctica could represent a hidden history, a history far older than our known civilization. Some believe that Antarctica was once a lush, habitable land, home to an ancient, advanced civilization. According to this theory, the landmass was not always covered by ice, but was once a thriving center of culture and science. However, a cataclysmic event, such as a pole shift, an ice age, or some other catastrophic force, struck, burying the civilization and its structures beneath the encroaching ice, leaving nothing behind but frozen remnants. The idea that an advanced civilization once thrived in Antarctica is not entirely without precedent in ancient mythologies. Many cultures have legends of lost cities or continents, Atlantis, for example, that were swallowed by the sea or destroyed by natural disasters. Some proponents of the Antarctica theory suggest that these legends could be based on an ancient reality, one that has been forgotten by the passing of time. The possibility that this lost civilization might have left behind pyramids, monuments, and other artifacts beneath the ice raises tantalizing questions. Could these be the remnants of a forgotten people, their knowledge and achievements buried by the forces of nature? In the early 20th century, a series of expeditions to Antarctica fueled further speculation about the continent's hidden secrets. One of the most famous, though controversial, was conducted by Admiral Richard E. Byrd in the 1940s. Byrd's mission, which explored the land beyond the ice shelf, is said by some to have uncovered ancient structures that were never officially acknowledged. These accounts have been dismissed by mainstream historians and scientists, but the stories persist in the fringe corners of research, with many claiming that Byrd's discovery was deliberately suppressed, perhaps due to the potential implications for history and science. Of course, the question remains: if these pyramids do exist beneath the ice, what purpose did they serve? Were they simply tombs or ceremonial structures, like the pyramids of Egypt? Or were they part of a much larger, more complex society, an ancient civilization with knowledge far beyond what we can currently comprehend? Perhaps the pyramids in Antarctica are not just monuments to power and status, but relics of a forgotten technology, a key to understanding lost scientific advancements, or even evidence of extraterrestrial influence. Some fringe theories even suggest that the shapes beneath the ice could be markers of alien origin, placed there by visitors from other worlds. Despite the intrigue, no definitive evidence of pyramids has yet been found. Scientific expeditions to the region are rare due to the extreme weather conditions and the difficulty of accessing the area. The continent is governed by international treaties that prohibit military activity and limit exploration, making any large-scale excavation or exploration of these sites difficult, if not impossible. Thus, the mystery remains. For now, the pyramids beneath the ice of Antarctica are a tantalizing puzzle, one that may hold the answers to questions about the ancient past, the history of our planet, and the very origins of civilization itself. Could they be a relic of a time when Antarctica was warm, thriving, and inhabited by a forgotten culture? Or are they nothing more than the product of natural forces, shaped by wind, ice, and time into formations that resemble ancient monuments? As we leave behind the icy expanse of Antarctica and move forward in our search for answers, we are left with one lingering thought. What else lies hidden beneath the ice, waiting to be uncovered? What secrets might still be buried in the frozen depths of this enigmatic land? Only time, and perhaps the right kind of exploration, will tell. As we leave behind the frozen secrets of Antarctica and journey into the warm, rugged heart of South America, we find ourselves in Peru, an ancient land where the echoes of long-forgotten civilizations still whisper through the wind-swept valleys and mist-covered mountains. Among the countless archaeological sites that dot this rich landscape, one discovery stands out as a testament to both the ingenuity and the mystery of the past: El Brujo, an ancient tomb that has captivated archaeologists and historians alike. Nestled on the northern coast of Peru, El Brujo is not just a burial site, but an enigma wrapped in the remnants of a culture long lost to time. The site itself is part of the larger archaeological complex of the Moche civilization, a pre-Columbian culture that flourished between the 1st and 8th centuries A.D. Known for their intricate pottery, sophisticated irrigation systems, and elaborate ceremonial practices, the Moche were a people whose art and architecture have left an indelible mark on history. Yet, it is in the tombs and burial sites of the Moche that some of their most enduring mysteries lie, and none more so than the tomb of the Lady of Cao, discovered at El Brujo. The tomb, located within the El Brujo archaeological site, was first uncovered in 2005. It was a stunning discovery, both for its state of preservation and for the wealth of artifacts found within it. The burial chamber was richly adorned, with gold jewelry, finely crafted pottery, and ceremonial items that hinted at the high status of the individual buried there. but it was the presence of a well-preserved mummy, alongside the clues about the individual's role in society, that truly set this tomb apart. The Lady of Cow, as she has come to be known, was not just any noblewoman. The detailed study of her remains revealed something extraordinary. She was likely a high-ranking ruler, possibly a queen or priestess, in a society that, to this day, is known for its complex rituals and hierarchy. Her tomb contained intricate textiles, painted murals, and even ceremonial knives that suggested she had an important role in Moche religious and political life. The presence of such items pointed to a woman of considerable power and influence, and yet her identity remains shrouded in mystery. What sets El Brujo apart from other archaeological sites, however, is not just the wealth of the burial or the artistry of the artifacts. It is the strange and unexplained elements surrounding the Lady of Cow's tomb, which seem to suggest that there was something uniquely remarkable about her, something that transcended the ordinary. For one, the Lady of Cow was not buried alone. Alongside her, several other individuals, likely servants or perhaps even warriors, were interred. Their remains, found near the main burial chamber, suggest a ritualistic aspect to the tomb's construction, where death was not seen as the end of an individual's journey, but as part of a larger, sacred transition. This practice was not uncommon in ancient cultures, but what makes the El Brujo burial so intriguing is the sheer scale of the tomb and the careful placement of the bodies. Were these individuals sacrificed in honor of the Lady of Cow, or were they merely accompanying her to the afterlife? The question remains unanswered. Perhaps even more puzzling is the tomb's location. El Brujo is situated within a vast desert region, an area that has long been home to natural wonders, but also to harsh, unforgiving conditions. What drew the Moche to this particular spot? Was it a place of spiritual significance, perhaps chosen for its proximity to the mountains, or its alignment with celestial bodies? The Moche were known to be deeply religious, and their ceremonial sites often had symbolic ties to the natural world. But the precise reasoning behind the location of the Lady of Cow's tomb is something that still eludes us. The tomb itself was found to be incredibly well preserved, with its walls still adorned with vibrant murals depicting scenes of Moche life and ritual. The images painted on the walls suggest a society that was deeply connected to the supernatural, with deities and ancestral figures playing prominent roles in their beliefs. The murals show figures engaged in ceremonies, possibly in honor of the Lady of Cow herself, though the exact meaning of the imagery remains open to interpretation. Could the paintings be depicting the lady's life and death, or do they tell a story of her divine connection to the gods? Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the tomb is the fact that the Lady of Cow's remains were found with ritual objects that seem to hint at something darker, something more mysterious. Among the artifacts were ceremonial knives, which are often associated with human sacrifice in Moche culture. Were these knives simply symbolic, or were they used in actual rituals, perhaps in the context of the lady's burial? The practice of human sacrifice was not unknown among the Moche, who believed that such acts would appease the gods and ensure prosperity. But was the Lady of Cow's burial connected to such a rite, or was it a more personal, spiritual offering? The Lady of Cow's tomb raises many questions, and the deeper we look, the more we realize how little we truly know about the Moche and their customs. The idea that a woman, possibly a queen or high priestess, could wield such power in a society where male rulers were typically the focus of historical attention is in itself intriguing. Were women in Moche society given greater authority than we have traditionally believed? Or was the Lady of Cow an anomaly, a singular figure who rose to power in a society that is now lost to history? Further fueling the intrigue surrounding El Brujo is the mystery of how the tomb was constructed. The tomb of the Lady of Cow was built with meticulous care, and the burial chamber itself is remarkably sophisticated for its time. Was this tomb intended as a monument not only to the lady's power, but also to the religious and political system of the Moche civilization? If so, what was the true purpose of this elaborate structure? Was it meant to serve as a portal to the afterlife, or as a symbol of eternal power and influence? In addition to the tomb itself, many of the surrounding artifacts found at El Brujo have been interpreted in different ways. Some suggest that the Moche used such items as offerings to their gods, while others speculate that these objects were meant to accompany the Lady of Kau into the afterlife, providing her with the tools and protections she would need in the next world. Despite years of study, much of the Lady of Kau's story remains a mystery. Was she a queen in her own right, ruling a powerful dynasty? Or was she a priestess whose role in society was deeply spiritual, bound by rituals that are now lost to time? What do the artifacts found in her tomb reveal about the Moche culture? And what does her burial tell us about the role of women in their society? As we reflect on the tomb of the Lady of Kau, we are reminded that history is filled with mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Every discovery opens the door to new questions, and every unanswered question beckons us deeper into the unknown. What more might the Lady of Kau's tomb reveal if we only knew where to look? What other secrets lie buried beneath the sands of Peru, waiting to be unearthed? As we continue our exploration into the world's most confounding mysteries, we journey across the vast and arid landscapes of Central Asia, where the wind whispers through the dry desert dunes of the Tarim Basin. Here, in the northwestern part of what is now China, lies a discovery that has puzzled historians, archaeologists, and scientists for nearly a century: the mysterious Tarim mummies. The Tarim Basin is an unforgiving place, a vast expanse of desert surrounded by high mountain ranges where life is sparse and the sun beats down mercilessly. But beneath this seemingly barren land, a series of astonishingly well-preserved mummies have been discovered. Mummies that, for many, challenge everything we know about ancient civilizations and human migration. These mummies, found in the 20th century, are unlike anything ever seen in other regions of Asia. The first major discovery occurred in the 1930s, when archaeologists stumbled upon a series of tombs near the ancient city of Lulan. The mummies found here were not the typical burial remains one might expect from the ancient cultures of China or Central Asia. Their clothing, hair, and facial features were distinctly European. Long, straight blonde hair, woolen textiles, and intricate craftsmanship. These were not the hallmarks of the nomadic peoples of the region, but rather suggestive of a much older, more complex society. It's a discovery that continues to raise profound questions about ancient human migration and the forces that shaped the cultural landscape of early civilizations. One of the most striking features of the Tarim mummies is their strikingly Caucasian appearance. Unlike the typical East Asian features common in the region, many of the mummies found in the Tarim Basin have facial characteristics that are more commonly associated with Western populations. The most famous of these is the Cherchen Mon, whose reddish-brown hair and sharp features have led to widespread speculation about his origins. These mummies, some dating back as far as 4,000 years, appear to belong to a group of people who were living in the area long before the rise of the dynastic empires of China. The question that immediately arises, then, is how did these individuals, who appear to be of European descent, end up in a remote region of Central Asia so long ago? Mainstream historians have proposed that they were likely part of a migration or trade route that connected Europe to Central Asia. The ancient Silk Road, which would later facilitate cultural exchange between East and West, was already in its nascent stages by the time these mummies were laid to rest. But this doesn't fully explain the exact origins of these people, or how they managed to establish themselves in such an isolated and harsh region. The fact that the mummies are so well preserved, their clothing and artifacts so intricately crafted, points to a culture that had a high degree of sophistication, yet no known civilization from the region at the time seems to match this level of technological advancement. For years, the mainstream theory suggested that these mummies were part of the Indo-European migration, moving eastward across the steppes. This would explain the European-like features, as Indo-European populations are known to have spread out from the Eurasian steppes. However, this theory raises even more questions. If these people were Indo-European, why is there no trace of them in the historical record? And how did they come to settle so far from their likely ancestral homeland? Could they have been a distinct, long-lost branch of the Indo-European family, one whose origins are hidden by the sands of time? Adding another layer of intrigue is the manner in which the mummies were buried. Many of them were found in simple, well-crafted wooden coffins, and some were positioned in a way that suggests ritualistic significance. Their clothing, often made of wool, was intricately woven, and some of the textiles discovered alongside them were dyed in rich, vibrant colors, hinting at a highly developed textile industry. The mummies' personal effects, including weapons, jewelry, and other artifacts, suggest a people who were not just survivors, but were living in relative luxury compared to the nomadic tribes of the surrounding regions. Their graves were even adorned with decorative features, suggesting that they had a belief system tied to the afterlife, a belief in spiritual protection that may have influenced their burial practices. Yet, despite all of this, the origins of these people remain as mysterious as ever. Some have proposed that the Tarim mummies were part of a lost civilization, one that existed on the fringes of known history, and whose existence was eventually erased from the historical record. Could these mummies be the remnants of an ancient, forgotten people who lived in isolation before disappearing altogether? The idea that they might represent a lost civilization is enticing, but it remains speculative at best. For some, the mystery deepens when we consider the idea that these people were not entirely of European origin, but rather were part of a cross-cultural blending, a group of people who may have migrated from the West, mingling with the local populations of Central Asia over thousands of years, creating a unique fusion of cultures. Could the Tarim mummies be the result of this fusion? Or, perhaps more provocatively, is there another explanation entirely? Some fringe theories suggest that the people of the Tarim Basin may have had contact with ancient civilizations in the Near East, and that their features were influenced by these contacts in ways we don't yet fully understand. Even more intriguing are the speculations about the significance of the mummies' burial sites. The mummies were not buried randomly, but in a specific, deliberate manner that suggests a highly organized and thoughtful culture. Some researchers have pointed out that the positioning of the bodies and the choice of burial sites could point to some kind of celestial alignment, as if the deceased were placed in specific positions to align with certain stars or constellations. Could these ancient people have been aware of astronomical events, using them to guide their burial practices? Or were these rituals tied to more spiritual beliefs that we can only begin to understand? The mystery of the Tarim mummies is not just one of physical appearance and burial practices. It also speaks to the deeper questions of human migration, cultural exchange, and the possible lost connections between East and West in antiquity. The fact that these people lived so far from their presumed homeland raises questions about the extent of ancient travel and the links that existed between distant civilizations long before the Silk Road reached its zenith. As we reflect on the mummies of the Tarim Basin, one thing is clear: their presence challenges our understanding of ancient history. The people of the Tarim Basin were neither purely Eastern nor Western, but appear to represent a convergence of both worlds, a people who lived at a time when the borders between East and West were far more fluid than we often imagine. Yet, their ultimate origins remain a mystery, one that invites us to look deeper into the shadowed corridors of ancient migration and human connection. Could the Tarim mummies be the remnants of a civilization that thrived on the borders of the known world before being lost to time? What secrets do their bones, their artifacts, and their burial practices still hold? Secrets that may reshape our understanding of human history. Only further study and perhaps more discoveries, will reveal the truth. But for now, the mystery of the Tarim mummies remains one of the most fascinating and unsolved puzzles in the history of human civilization. As we leave behind the dust and ancient bones of Central Asia, we journey to a vastly different place, one that lies at the very heart of a desert where the wind seems to carry the echoes of history itself. The shifting sands of the Egyptian desert have long concealed mysteries that continue to perplex archaeologists, historians, and adventurers alike. Among the most captivating and eerie of these mysteries is the disappearance of the army of Cambyses II, the Persian king who set out to conquer Egypt in 525 BC. A tale that has lived on in legend and history, this is a story of an entire military force lost in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the desert. A disappearance that remains one of antiquity's most baffling, unsolved enigmas. The year was 525 BC, and Cambyses II, the son of the mighty Persian king Cyrus the Great, had already established himself as one of the most formidable rulers of his time. Having conquered much of the known world, Cambyses sought to add Egypt to his vast empire. His forces were well-equipped, his strategy ruthless, and his ambitions limitless. With a seasoned army at his command, Cambyses marched southward to confront Egypt's pharaoh Psamtik III. The battle was swift and decisive, and Cambyses emerged victorious, quickly subjugating Egypt and claiming it as part of his Persian Empire. But the conquest of Egypt, it seems, was not enough for Cambyses. As history tells it, driven by his desire to utterly crush Egyptian resistance and further solidify his empire, Cambyses turned his gaze toward a new goal, a military campaign aimed at the Temple of Amun, one of the most sacred and powerful religious sites in Egypt. The temple, located in the distant oasis of Siwa in the western desert, had long been a symbol of Egyptian strength, and the oracle of Amun was renowned for offering prophecies that had guided the course of the Egyptian monarchy. Cambyses, feeling the need to assert his dominance over all of Egypt's divine and earthly powers, decided to march toward the oracle of Amun, seeking to destroy what was left of Egypt's spiritual authority. In 524 BC, Cambyses II set out with his army, a force estimated to number between 50,000 to 100,000 men, a vast and imposing force. The route to Siwa was not only treacherous, but also deeply unfamiliar to the Persian army. The desert, with its vast stretches of unmarked dunes and scorching heat, was a place that few could navigate with any certainty, even with the aid of guides. Yet, Cambyses, confident in his ability to conquer, pushed on. According to the ancient historian Herodotus, what happened next remains one of history's most baffling tales. In his histories, Herodotus wrote that Cambyses' army, having marched for days across the relentless desert, was swallowed up by a vast sandstorm. The dust storm, fierce and unrelenting, obliterated all traces of the Persian forces. The army, once a mighty and well-disciplined fighting force, simply vanished. Not a single soldier returned to report what had happened. The expedition was lost without a trace, and with it, Cambyses' dreams of further expansion into Egypt. Herodotus's account is the primary historical source for the story, but it is not the only one. Other ancient writers, including Plutarch, later referenced the loss of the Persian army, though with less detail. The fact that so many historians have recorded this event speaks to its significance, and yet the mystery persists. How could an entire army, heavily armed and well prepared, simply disappear into the desert, never to be heard from again? What makes the disappearance of Cambyses' army even more enigmatic is the lack of concrete evidence or remains to support the claim. No bodies, no weapons, no signs of battle, nothing. The sandstorm described by Herodotus is a likely candidate for the cause of this vanishing, but the details are scarce. Was it simply the overwhelming force of the desert that took the lives of so many men, or is there something more to the story? Could the sandstorm have been a rare meteorological phenomenon, one that swept across the desert with such power that it erased the entire Persian army from the face of the earth? The desert, for all its beauty and majesty, can be as merciless as it is unpredictable. Sandstorms are not uncommon in such arid climates, and they can be deadly. Yet the scale of this particular storm, according to ancient accounts, was unlike anything that would normally be expected. Herodotus speaks of the storm as though it was something of a supernatural force, an event beyond the realm of mere nature. Could this be the root of the mystery? The idea that the Persian army met with an unnatural, perhaps even divine, destruction? Was this punishment for Cambyses' desecration of the oracle of Amun, an act that offended the gods? Others suggest that the story may have been exaggerated or distorted over time. Ancient accounts, especially those recorded by historians like Herodotus, are often colored by myth and legend, and some scholars have questioned the veracity of Herodotus's account. Could the Persian army have been lost in the desert, but not to the extent described by Herodotus? Perhaps the army suffered from thirst, hunger, and disarray, but over time, reports of their utter disappearance were embellished, creating a more dramatic and mysterious tale than what actually occurred. More recent theories have focused on the geography of the desert. Some have suggested that Cambyses' army may have mistakenly ventured into a particularly dangerous part of the desert, one that contained hidden salt flats, quicksand, or other deadly natural hazards. The Siwa oasis is located in a part of the desert that remains largely unexplored to this day, and some researchers speculate that the terrain may have played a significant role in the army's demise. Could the soldiers have wandered into an area where the land was particularly hostile, becoming lost or trapped by natural obstacles? Other theories delve into more speculative territory. Some fringe theories suggest that Cambyses' army was not simply lost to the sands of the desert, but that it was deliberately erased, possibly by forces or groups who wanted to prevent the Persian Empire from further expansion. Could the army have been attacked and destroyed by local Egyptian forces, perhaps in an ambush or as part of a larger strategy to protect the sacred oracle of Amun? Or might there have been an even more mysterious force at work, something otherworldly or supernatural, as suggested by the ancient sources themselves? Despite decades of research, no one has been able to conclusively solve the mystery of Cambyses' lost army. No remains have been found in the desert, and no new historical evidence has emerged to shed light on what really happened. The tale, so vividly described by Herodotus, remains a haunting one, an entire army swallowed up by the vastness of the desert, their fates lost to time and the shifting sands. As we reflect on the mystery of Cambyses' vanished army, we are left to wonder, did the Persian forces truly fall victim to the whims of nature, or is there something deeper at play here, something hidden beneath the layers of myth, history, and speculation? The sands of Egypt have swallowed many secrets, and perhaps this one, too, will remain buried in the desert's vast embrace. What truly happened to the army of Cambyses II? The mystery lingers, elusive and profound, challenging our understanding of history and the forces that shape it. As we move from the vast desert sands of Egypt and the shifting dunes of Central Asia, we find ourselves once again immersed in the ancient world, this time in a region rich with biblical history and mystery. The lands of the ancient kingdom of Moab, nestled in what is now modern-day Jordan. Here, carved into the stone by the hand of a king, lies one of the most significant and enigmatic artifacts of the ancient Near East, the Moabite stone, also known as the Mesha Stele. The story of the Mesha Stele begins in 1868, when it was discovered by a French expedition at Diban, a small village in Jordan, just south of Ammon. The stone is a large basalt slab, over 3 feet high, with inscriptions in a script known as Moabite, a language closely related to Hebrew. The inscription, which dates back to the 9th century BC, is one of the most important epigraphic finds of the ancient world, as it contains a detailed account of the Moabite king Mesha's reign and his battles against the Israelites. The stele is an invaluable source for understanding the history of the Moabites, their relations with neighboring kingdoms, and the broader geopolitical context of the time. The text on the stone speaks of Mesha's victories over the Israelites, including his successful rebellion against the Israelite king Omri, who had previously controlled Moab. According to the inscription, Mesha attributes his victories to the god Chemosh, the Moabite deity, and describes in vivid detail his campaigns and the rebuilding efforts of his kingdom. The stele's historical significance is immense. Not only does it corroborate certain biblical accounts, such as the existence of the Israelite monarchy under Omri and the revolt of the Moabites, but it also provides us with a rare and direct perspective from the Moabite side of the story. Yet, despite the stone's importance, its mystery deepens with the portions of the text that remain missing, fragments that have never been recovered. The Moabite stone, once a complete inscription, was tragically broken into several pieces before it could be fully studied. What remains of the stele is only a portion of the original inscription, and parts of the story that it once told are now lost to time. What happened to those missing fragments? Where did they go? And why has no one been able to recover them? The initial discovery of the Mesha stele caused quite a stir, as its text seemed to confirm much of what the Bible described about the ancient conflicts between the Moabites and the Israelites. However, it wasn't long before the mystery surrounding the stele began to take shape. The stele, after all, had been broken into pieces before it was properly studied. The story of how this happened is itself shrouded in uncertainty. The stele was first discovered in 1868, but before it could be fully examined, it was transported to Istanbul for safekeeping. During its time in the Ottoman Empire, the stone was damaged. Several pieces of the inscription were chipped away, either accidentally or purposefully, and never recovered. When the stone was eventually sent to the Louvre Museum in Paris, it was reconstructed as best as possible, but critical parts of the text were permanently lost. What did these missing sections say? Were they simply lost due to carelessness, or was there something more deliberate behind their disappearance? The missing sections of the stele have long been a subject of speculation. Scholars have been able to decipher the remaining portions, but gaps in the text leave crucial details unaccounted for. Some researchers believe the missing pieces could have contained references to more specific events, further elaborating on Mesha's interactions with Israel and the surrounding nations. Others suggest that the gaps might have held details about the religious practices of the Moabites, perhaps even accounts of rituals or sacrifices dedicated to their god, Chemosh. In an attempt to reconstruct the missing portions, modern scholars have turned to a variety of sources, including biblical texts, other inscriptions, and comparative studies of Semitic languages. Some have suggested that the Moabite stele was not just a historical record, but also a religious document, meant to immortalize Mesha's victories and demonstrate his divine favor. If this is true, then what was lost when the stone was damaged could have been far more than just historical events. It could have been a sacred narrative, one that expressed the Moabites' relationship with their god in a way that might never be fully understood. Adding to the intrigue are the theories surrounding the possible reasons for the destruction of the stele. Some speculate that the damage was accidental, perhaps the result of rough handling during the stele's transport, or even natural wear and tear as the stone aged. Others have entertained the possibility that the loss of these portions was more intentional. Could they have been removed to conceal certain information, perhaps content that was politically sensitive or too controversial for those in power at the time? There is even a theory that suggests that the missing pieces could have contained more explicit references to Israel's defeat, details that might have been deemed too uncomfortable or embarrassing to the Israelites. If these parts were deliberately removed, it would raise fascinating questions about the politics of history and memory in the ancient world. One of the more fringe theories suggests that the missing sections of the Mesha stele could contain references to a lost or hidden part of the Moabite civilization itself, a key to understanding an ancient mystery or secret. In the ancient world, monuments and inscriptions often served purposes beyond mere record-keeping. They were messages for the living and the dead, encoded with information about power, legitimacy, and divine favor. If the missing portions of the stele held such encoded knowledge, their destruction or removal might have been a deliberate attempt to suppress this knowledge, possibly by competing powers or civilizations. The Mesha stele raises a larger, more philosophical question about the nature of ancient records and their preservation. What exactly have we lost in the gaps of history? The Mesha stele offers a rare and invaluable glimpse into the ancient world, but it is also a stark reminder of how fragile the record of human history can be. Much of what we know about the past, whether through inscriptions, artifacts, or oral tradition, has been subject to the forces of time, decay, and human intervention. How much of the original story of Mesha and the Moabites remains hidden from us, and how much of it will forever be lost? We may never know the full extent of what the missing portions of the Mesha stele contained, but the very fact that part of it is lost adds to the mystery. In the world of ancient history, gaps in the record are often as revealing as the things we manage to preserve. What, exactly, was left behind? What stories might have been silenced, and why? Could the missing fragments of the Mesha stele be the key to understanding not just the Moabite kingdom, but the broader, complex relationship between the kingdoms of Israel and Moab, and perhaps even the ancient world itself? As we continue to explore the enigmatic remains of the past, the story of the Moabite stone serves as both a treasure and a puzzle. It invites us to look at what is lost in history and to ask not only what we have found, but what still lies hidden in the sands of time. As we leave behind the ancient inscriptions of the Moabite stone, we travel further south to the heart of southern Africa, where another enigma, perhaps equally as strange, awaits. In the remote, rugged terrain of Mpaluzi, a village in the northeastern corner of South Africa, there exists a site that has baffled explorers, archaeologists, and skeptics alike. The giant footprint of Mpaluzi. It's an artifact of both physical and conceptual wonder, a massive footprint etched into the stone like an imprint left by a creature of myth. But the mystery surrounding it runs deeper than just its sheer size. What could have made such an enormous mark, and how can we explain its existence? This footprint is far from ordinary. It is a remnant of something much larger, perhaps far older, and certainly more elusive. The giant footprint, which measures about 1.2 meters in length, sits within a rock formation, partially exposed to the elements. Located near the Mpaluzi River, the imprint is part of a larger geological formation, an expansive stretch of rock and stone that has been weathered over time. While the region is known for its rich natural history, the footprint itself stands out not because it's simply large, but because it doesn't fit within any typical geological or biological explanation we have on record. No known animal, prehistoric or modern, could have left such a massive imprint on this rock. The dimensions alone make it an extraordinary discovery. But what makes the footprint even more mystifying is that no consensus exists about what caused it. Some suggest that it could have been formed by natural processes, possibly erosion or some form of ancient weathering. However, the sheer size and depth of the print beg further questions. If erosion was responsible, why does it resemble a human-like or humanoid shape? Its form is strikingly similar to the anatomy of a large human foot, complete with toes, an arch, and a distinct heel, yet it dwarfs anything found in nature or history. Scientists and researchers who have visited the site have found themselves puzzled by the lack of a direct analogy. The stone around the footprint is made up of sedimentary rock, which typically erodes in specific ways, creating more irregular and less defined shapes. Yet the print in Mpaluzi is smooth and highly detailed, as though it were pressed into the rock by a force far stronger than natural weathering. For years, scholars have debated the origin of the footprint. Mainstream theories point to natural causes, such as the possibility that the footprint was once an imprint left by an animal during a time of intense flooding. Others suggest that the formation of the rock, combined with unique erosion patterns, could have naturally produced a shape resembling a footprint. Still, none of these explanations offer a satisfactory account for its scale and precision. It's not just the size of the footprint that is perplexing. It's the question of how such a detailed, human-like mark could have been made by nature alone. As the years have passed, some fringe theories have gained traction, offering alternative explanations that venture into more speculative territory. One such theory suggests that the footprint is not the result of natural forces at all, but instead was created by a giant, humanoid being, one whose existence lies hidden in the annals of prehistory. This theory suggests that the footprint could belong to a race of beings much larger than modern humans, perhaps even a remnant of an ancient civilization that once walked the earth in a form unlike anything we can currently comprehend. This idea, while tantalizing, remains speculative. No physical evidence of such a race has ever been discovered in any part of the world, and mainstream archaeology offers no support for the notion of giant humanoids coexisting with humans in ancient times. And yet, the sheer improbability of the footprint being the result of natural forces, or even of any known species, keeps the theory alive in the minds of some. Could the footprint be the last trace of a forgotten species, a race whose giants once roamed the earth before fading into obscurity? Or is it merely a quirk of nature, a curious coincidence of rock and erosion that just happens to resemble a human foot? The absence of conclusive evidence only deepens the enigma. For some, the giant footprint of Mpaluzi represents more than just a historical curiosity. It points to something more profound, something that calls into question the limits of human knowledge and understanding. Could there be parts of human history, or prehistory, that have been lost to time, buried in layers of earth and rock? Could there have been civilizations, races, or species that existed before recorded history, whose traces we have yet to uncover? The Mpaluzi footprint challenges us to rethink the way we approach our understanding of the past and its mysteries. In addition to the theories of prehistoric giants, there are those who speculate that the footprint could have been carved by ancient humans. Perhaps the footprint was deliberately shaped, a form of prehistoric art, or even a cultural symbol, created to mark a sacred site or commemorate a significant event. Some have drawn comparisons between the giant footprint and other ancient petroglyphs found across the globe, which feature human-like figures or imprints. If this is the case, could the footprint have been part of a larger, now lost tradition of carving and stonework that existed long before the rise of known civilizations? Another intriguing possibility is that the footprint could have been created by a much larger animal, now extinct. Some researchers have speculated that the Mpaluzi footprint could be the remnant of an ancient megafauna species, an oversized mammal that roamed the earth thousands of years ago. While no evidence of such a creature has been found in the region, the idea that the footprint belongs to a species of colossal size raises an important question. Could there have been creatures, whether real or mythical, that existed in ancient Africa, whose marks have been preserved in the stone? As we consider these theories, we are reminded that the history of our planet is still largely unknown. The Earth is full of remnants, strange artifacts, and curious formations that challenge our current understanding. The footprint at Mpaluzi is only one of many such mysteries. And yet, despite the myriad explanations offered, no single theory fully accounts for the details of the footprint, leaving us with more questions than answers. What made the giant footprint of Mpaluzi? Was it the work of a forgotten giant race, a lost culture, or simply an anomaly of nature? The truth remains elusive, hidden beneath the layers of time and rock. As we look at the imprint, still visible today in the rugged landscape of Mpaluzi, we can't help but wonder what secrets the earth holds, what other footprints of the past remain waiting to be uncovered. Perhaps in time, we will find the answers we seek. But for now, the giant footprint remains an enigma, a reminder of how much of the past is still hidden from our view. As we step away from the giant footprints and mysterious stones, our journey now leads us to the heart of the Balkans, a place where the line between myth and history seems to blur, where ancient monuments rise from the earth under a veil of intrigue. This is Bosnia, a land marked by its rugged mountains, rich history, and hidden secrets. Here, nestled in the landscape, a set of enigmatic structures has quietly captured the attention of explorers, archaeologists, and theorists from around the world. These are the pyramids of Bosnia, located near the small town of Visoko, just outside of Sarajevo. The story of the Bosnian pyramids began in 2005, when Semir Osmanagic, a Bosnian-American businessman and amateur archaeologist, claimed that a hill near Visoko was not just a natural formation, but the remains of an ancient pyramid, one of several scattered across the region. Osmanagic's theory suggested that these pyramids were built by a lost civilization, potentially predating any known ancient cultures. What seemed at first like an outlandish claim began to draw attention from across the world. A site that was previously thought to be a mere hill was now being considered a massive, ancient structure, an artificial pyramid built thousands of years ago. The most prominent of these pyramids is the so-called Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, which rises approximately 220 meters above the surrounding valley. Its shape, while far less angular than the majestic pyramids of Egypt or the stepped structures of Mesoamerica, does exhibit a distinct pyramidal form. Its smooth surface, once thought to be a natural hill, is now seen by some as the result of deliberate human engineering. The structure is made of layers of what seems to be man-made stone, and the surrounding area is rich with intricate tunnels and chambers, suggesting that these were not merely geological formations, but the remnants of a massive, sophisticated construction effort. As one surveys the site, there is a haunting sense of both wonder and skepticism in the air. The surrounding landscape is breathtaking, the remnants of the pyramids rising dramatically from the hillsides, casting long shadows over the green fields below. There are other supposed pyramids nearby: the Bosnian Pyramid of the Moon, the Bosnian Pyramid of the Dragon, and the Bosnian Pyramid of Love, each one just as mysterious as the last, contributing to the sense that an ancient, long-forgotten civilization once thrived here, leaving behind an unmistakable mark on the land. Yet, for all its allure, the story of the Bosnian pyramids is anything but straightforward. While some consider the site to be a groundbreaking discovery, others view it with skepticism. Mainstream archaeologists and geologists argue that the pyramids are not pyramids at all, but natural formations shaped by millennia of erosion. According to their interpretation, the layers of stone are simply the result of geological processes, not the work of a lost civilization. The shapes may appear striking, but they contend that the similarities to pyramidal structures are purely coincidental, an optical illusion created by the natural landscape. What makes the Bosnian pyramids so compelling, however, is the evidence, or lack thereof, that has been presented for and against their existence as man-made monuments. Despite the skepticism, Osmanagic and his supporters have pointed to several unusual findings in the area, including mysterious underground tunnels, strange energy anomalies, and even claims of a hidden civilization that once flourished in the region. Some researchers have reported that the area exhibits unusual electromagnetic activity, with some parts of the pyramid emitting a unique energy that seems to be linked to the Earth's natural electromagnetic field. Could this be the signature of an advanced ancient society capable of harnessing energy in ways we don't fully understand? Further adding to the mystery are the claims made by Osmanagic and his team regarding the age of the pyramids. While traditional carbon dating methods have not been able to pinpoint the exact age of the structures, Osmanagic suggests that these pyramids could be as old as 12,000 years, placing their creation in a period long before any known advanced civilizations. This timeline would suggest that the Bosnian pyramids were built at a time when human beings were thought to be just beginning to form rudimentary agricultural societies. Could this ancient site be the product of a lost civilization, predating even the Egyptians? Or is this yet another case of misinterpretation and wishful thinking? Adding to the complexity of the mystery are the underground tunnels, which are said to extend deep beneath the pyramids and throughout the valley. These tunnels, some of which have been partially explored, are reportedly lined with smooth stones and exhibit features that do not appear to be of natural origin. The walls are often described as being shaped and worked with precision, suggesting that they were carved by human hands. However, no definitive evidence has emerged to confirm the true purpose of these tunnels. Were they part of a larger network of underground chambers, perhaps used for ritual purposes or as a means of energy transmission? Or were they simply the product of millennia of erosion, with the stone formations creating the illusion of intentional design? As is often the case with such controversial discoveries, the debate over the pyramids of Bosnia extends into the realm of fringe theories. Some believe that the pyramids were built by a long-lost civilization of extraterrestrial origin, citing the unusual energy readings and the sophisticated engineering of the structure as evidence of technology far beyond what should have been available to ancient humans. Others propose that the pyramids are a remnant of a forgotten race of giants, beings of immense size who may have built these enormous structures as monuments to their power and influence. Despite the dramatic theories and contrasting opinions, one thing remains certain: the Bosnian pyramids continue to captivate the imagination. No definitive explanation has emerged to explain their true origins, and the debate over their legitimacy shows no sign of slowing down. For every piece of evidence that supports the theory of ancient pyramids, there is another that challenges it. The quest for answers is still ongoing, and as new discoveries are made and the site continues to be explored, the mystery of the Bosnian pyramids deepens. Could it be that the pyramids of Bosnia are remnants of a lost civilization, erased by time and erosion, waiting to be rediscovered by those willing to question conventional wisdom? Or are they simply natural formations, shaped by the earth in ways that still defy our understanding? As we continue to explore the mysteries of the past, the Bosnian pyramids stand as a reminder that the line between the known and the unknown is often far thinner than we may think. What lies beneath the soil of Bosnia? And what other secrets might yet be hidden, waiting for us to uncover? The mystery endures, and with each passing year, the pyramids of Bosnia continue to invite us to ask, what if we are only scratching the surface of a much larger and far more profound story? As we transition from the enigmatic wonders of the pyramids of Bosnia, we now find ourselves entering the shadowy corridors of ancient history, where the line between power, madness, and the unknown becomes nearly indistinguishable. The name Caligula evokes a range of responses, from horror to fascination, from condemnation to curiosity. Widely regarded as one of the most notorious and unpredictable emperors of Rome, Caligula's reign remains shrouded in a blend of recorded fact, exaggerated accounts, and whispered rumors. Born Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus in 12 AD, Caligula ascended to the throne in 37 AD, following the death of his great-grandfather Tiberius. His early years in power were filled with promise. As a young man, Caligula was seen as charismatic and intelligent, traits that earned him favor with both the Senate and the Roman people. However, within a few short years, he transformed into the figure we recognize today, a ruler whose erratic behavior, bizarre actions, and tyrannical rule became infamous, casting a dark shadow over his legacy. But was Caligula truly the mad tyrant that history remembers, or is his story more complex than the accounts would suggest? Caligula's reign, which lasted only 4 years until his assassination in 41 AD, was marked by shocking acts of cruelty and eccentricity. The most famous of these was his alleged appointment of his horse, Incitatus, as a consul, a move often interpreted as a sign of his madness or perhaps a deliberate attempt to mock the Senate and its supposed power. Ancient sources tell us that Caligula built a lavish palace for Incitatus, provided him with a marble stall, and even offered the horse a seat at the dinner table. These actions, often cited as clear evidence of his descent into insanity, paint the picture of a ruler completely detached from reality. But was this a case of genuine madness, or could it have been a masterstroke of political maneuvering? Some historians have speculated that Caligula's treatment of Incitatus may not have been an expression of delusion, but rather a calculated affront to the Senate. By elevating his horse to such an absurd position of power, Caligula could have been highlighting the emptiness of the Senate's authority. Perhaps the emperor was using his actions to demonstrate his absolute control and mock the traditional Roman political structures that were, in his eyes, ineffective and corrupt. To understand the complexities of Caligula's reign, one must consider not only the dramatic and bizarre tales, but also the context in which he ruled. Caligula inherited a deeply entrenched system of imperial power, one that was constantly under strain. His reign began with enthusiasm and hope. He was seen as a fresh start after the long and often tyrannical rule of Tiberius. The early days of his rule were marked by efforts to reverse the more unpopular policies of his predecessor. He offered generous amnesties, freed prisoners, and even reduced taxes. His people, at first, hailed him as a liberator. But after a brief period of popularity, Caligula's behavior took a darker turn. Ancient historians, particularly Suetonius and Dio Cassius, paint a portrait of a man who, once in power, seemed to abandon his earlier restraint and indulge in acts of violence and cruelty. He is said to have ordered the execution of political enemies, manipulated public opinion through spectacle, and displayed an increasing obsession with his own divinity. In one famous incident, he purportedly declared himself a living god, demanding that statues of him be placed in temples throughout the empire and that he be worshipped as a deity. The idea of a ruler elevating himself to the status of divinity was not entirely unprecedented in Roman history, but Caligula's insistence on this, and the reportedly extravagant manner in which he pursued it, struck many as an affront to Roman traditions. Still, how much of this is fact, and how much is myth? It is important to consider the sources from which these accounts are drawn. Suetonius and Dio Cassius wrote their histories long after Caligula's death, and their works are often colored by the biases and political agendas of their time. After Caligula's assassination, the Senate, eager to distance itself from the chaos of his reign, declared him a public enemy. His name was erased from official records, and the legacy of his rule was systematically vilified. This could explain, in part, why the accounts we have are so harsh. They were written by those who had a vested interest in portraying him as a tyrant, perhaps even as a madman. The ancient Roman world, after all, was not one to shy away from harsh judgments, particularly when it came to those who held absolute power. In the absence of conclusive evidence, some modern historians have raised the possibility that Caligula's actions were less the result of madness and more the consequence of the immense pressures placed on him as emperor. He was thrust into an imperial system where political maneuvering, betrayal, and assassination were a constant threat. Could Caligula, knowing that his position was fragile, have used cruelty and terror to assert his authority in an environment where even the slightest show of weakness could result in death? It is not entirely outside the realm of possibility that his eccentricities were, at least in part, a strategy for survival in a ruthless political landscape. Others have proposed that Caligula's actions were motivated by something more psychological. The early years of his life were filled with hardship. After the death of his father, Germanicus, he was forced to live in exile, surrounded by the suspicion and brutality of Tiberius's court. His time under Tiberius's rule, in particular, was marked by paranoia and fear, as Caligula watched his family members and allies fall victim to the emperor's political purges. Was this environment responsible for shaping Caligula's psyche, pushing him to display the very traits of cruelty and paranoia he would later be known for? Or was he truly a man of unstable mind, driven by visions of grandeur and power? In contrast to the image of Caligula as a man consumed by madness, some modern scholars have suggested that his reign was misunderstood altogether. According to these theories, Caligula's actions may have been exaggerated or misinterpreted by ancient historians, who had their own reasons for portraying him in such a negative light. Some argue that his treatment of the Senate, his extravagant behavior, and his claims of divinity were simply the actions of a man trying to assert control over an empire that was, at the time, in a period of political flux. Was Caligula truly mad, or was he simply a leader grappling with the overwhelming weight of imperial power, using whatever means necessary to secure his rule? As we delve into the mysteries surrounding Emperor Caligula, we are left with far more questions than answers. Was Caligula a tyrant driven to madness by the pressures of absolute power, or was he a misunderstood leader, caught in the whirlwind of political intrigue and historical misrepresentation? His legacy remains fractured and elusive, filled with rumors, inconsistencies, and the whispers of those who lived long after his death. Perhaps the true nature of his reign will always remain obscured, buried beneath the layers of myth and history. What if, hidden behind the stories of madness and cruelty, there is a deeper, more complex truth about the man who once ruled the Roman Empire? Is it possible that we will never fully understand the forces that shaped Caligula, or will future discoveries shed new light on this enigmatic figure? As we continue to probe the past, the mystery of Caligula's life remains a compelling enigma, one that continues to challenge our understanding of power, humanity, and the nature of leadership. As we leave behind the chaos of the Roman Empire, our journey now takes us to the windswept landscapes of Sweden, where an unsettling mystery has remained unsolved for over a millennium. The Sandby Borg site, located on the island of Öland, is home to what remains of a once thriving fortress. The ruins stand like ancient sentinels, silently holding a dark secret, a mass grave, an unspeakable tragedy, and the chilling questions that have plagued archaeologists and historians for centuries. Sandby Borg was a large Iron Age settlement, once fortified and alive with activity. The site consists of the remnants of a circular stone wall that enclosed the settlement, with houses arranged within its boundaries. The structure itself is typical of the period, providing evidence of a thriving community on the island of Öland, which was strategically positioned in the Baltic Sea. The inhabitants of Sandby Borg were part of the wider Nordic Bronze Age culture, believed to be farmers, warriors, and craftsmen. However, by the time archaeologists first unearthed the site in the 1980s, it had been abandoned, its once bustling streets left eerily silent. But it wasn't the abandonment that sparked intrigue. It was the massacre. What makes Sandby Borg stand out from the other ancient ruins scattered across Scandinavia is what was discovered buried beneath its soil. In 2010, archaeologists began excavating one of the settlement's houses and uncovered a chilling scene. The bodies of 26 people, mostly adults, were found in and around the house, some still clinging to their weapons, others in positions suggesting they were caught entirely by surprise. The sheer brutality of the massacre was immediately apparent. The bodies showed signs of violent death, with broken bones, deep wounds, and signs that the victims had been killed swiftly, and without mercy. Most of the victims had been left unburied, their remains scattered across the area, undisturbed for nearly 1,500 years. The details of the massacre at Sandby Borg are, at best, fragmentary. But it's the lack of clear answers that gives the event its haunting power. The attackers, whoever they were, seem to have struck without warning, killing nearly every inhabitant of the settlement in one fell swoop. Yet, even more unsettling is the fact that no trace of the attackers has been found. There are no signs of a battle, no evidence of a long siege, and no physical evidence to explain why the settlement was destroyed so quickly and decisively. It's as if the perpetrators disappeared into thin air, leaving behind only the dead and the unanswered questions. In the wake of the discovery, archaeologists and historians have struggled to offer a definitive explanation for what happened. Some theories suggest that the massacre was the result of a tribal conflict, with a rival group descending upon the settlement, taking advantage of an opportune moment to strike. Yet the scale of the attack and the sheer brutality involved have led others to speculate that something far more sinister was at play. Could it have been a ritualistic or sacrificial killing, an act of revenge, or a brutal attempt to erase a people from history? One prevailing theory suggests that the people of Sandby Borg were victims of a political purge. The settlement's location, surrounded by other settlements on the island of Åland, suggests that it may have been part of a larger network of trade or social alliances. It's possible that the massacre was the result of an internal power struggle, where factions within the community turned on one another. If the people of Sandby Borg were part of a wider political system or alliance, the attack might have been a means of disrupting that power structure, eliminating a threat to a rival group or political leader. Another theory that has gained traction in recent years is the idea that Sandby Borg was destroyed by raiders, perhaps from an entirely different region of the Nordic world. The people of Åland, after all, were known to have engaged in trade with other peoples across the Baltic Sea. Some scholars suggest that the attackers may have been a band of mercenaries or outsiders, looking to seize land, resources, or simply punish the people of Sandby Borg for reasons lost to time. The fact that the bodies of the victims show little sign of resistance, and that the settlement was abandoned so quickly, has led to speculation that the attack was planned, strategic, and executed with an almost professional efficiency. Yet there are still other, more speculative theories surrounding the Sandby Borg massacre. Some have pointed to the idea that the killings may have had a ritualistic or religious aspect. Ancient societies often practiced human sacrifice, and it is not beyond the realm of possibility that the massacre was the result of a ceremonial act intended to appease the gods or secure favor for an upcoming harvest or war. The lack of resistance among the victims, the swiftness of the attack, and the brutality of the killings could point to an act of collective punishment or an ancient cult practicing sacrificial rites. Adding further layers to the mystery is the fact that, despite the passage of time, there are still no solid clues to the identity of the perpetrators. No weapons, no artifacts, no clues to the group responsible for the massacre have been found. The site has been carefully examined, and yet nothing conclusive has turned up. How could such a large-scale, violent event leave so little trace behind? Were the attackers so efficient in their methods that they left no evidence behind? Or was the event part of a much larger, sweeping conflict that erased all memory of it? One possible explanation is that the destruction of Sandby Borg was not just an act of violence, but also an act of symbolic erasure. The attackers may have been so intent on obliterating the settlement and its inhabitants that they deliberately left no trace of their existence. The bodies of the victims were scattered, left in disarray, with no burial rites observed, a potential sign of the complete eradication of a people and a culture. If this was the case, the attackers may have sought to send a message that the people of Sandby Borg and their way of life were to be forgotten, wiped away by force and violence. The true nature of the Sandby Borg massacre may never be known. Theories abound, and each new discovery in the region raises more questions than it answers. Some historians believe that the event will remain an enduring mystery, a reminder of the hidden, violent past that continues to echo through the centuries. Why was Sandby Borg targeted? Who were the attackers, and what drove them to commit such an atrocity? What was the larger political or cultural context of the time that may have contributed to this violent episode? Could it be that the people of Sandby Borg were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was the massacre part of a deeper, more deliberate effort to reshape the political and social landscape of the Iron Age Nordic world? As we continue to unravel the mystery of this long-forgotten tragedy, we are left to wonder, what other secrets lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered? And what can the story of the Sandby Borg massacre teach us about the dark forces of violence, power, and politics that shaped the ancient world? As we move further into the depths of human history, we find ourselves standing at the edge of a long-lost civilization, a culture that has both intrigued and mystified scholars for centuries: the Tartessos Civilization. Situated along the southern coast of the Iberian Peninsula, the ruins of Tartessos lie submerged beneath the mists of time, much like its legend, half-formed and elusive. Despite their considerable influence in the ancient Mediterranean world, the people of Tartessos have left behind only fragments of their existence, pieces of a story that seems to vanish as quickly as it began. The Tartessos civilization is believed to have flourished between the 9th and 6th centuries BC, at the height of its power during a time when the ancient Mediterranean was a nexus of trade and cultural exchange. The Tartessians were not merely inhabitants of a remote corner of the Iberian Peninsula, but a dynamic, wealthy society, one that engaged in extensive commerce with other civilizations, including the Phoenicians, Greeks, and perhaps even the Egyptians. These people were known for their advanced metallurgy, skill in trade, and their mysterious wealth, which seemed to come from nowhere. Yet, despite these accomplishments, the civilization itself left no definitive record of its demise. Its disappearance is as enigmatic as its rise. The first tantalizing clues about Tartessos came from the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who wrote about a wealthy land known as the Silver People, referring to the Tartessians' vast resources of silver and other precious metals. The Greeks knew Tartessos for its prosperity and the vibrant culture of its people. According to Herodotus, the Tartessians had close relations with the Phoenicians, with whom they traded their wealth of minerals and metals, suggesting that they had significant technological expertise. This relationship with the Phoenicians was vital, as the Phoenicians were renowned shipbuilders and traders who controlled vast networks of Mediterranean commerce. Despite these references, the precise location of Tartessos remained elusive for centuries. Ancient scholars believed it was located somewhere near the mouth of the Guadalquivir River, but this theory remained unproven until archaeological excavations in the 20th century began to offer more tangible evidence of its existence. Today, the region most associated with Tartessos is the Doñana National Park in southern Spain, where some believe the ruins of the ancient city may still lie beneath layers of sediment and water. Excavations at a site known as Tartessos near the Guadalquivir River have revealed a number of important artifacts, mostly tools, pottery, and remnants of buildings, hinting at the urban development of the city. Yet, much of the site remains submerged or inaccessible, leaving much of the Tartessos civilization still buried under layers of history and nature. There is no clear, unified city or metropolis uncovered to date, just traces of a once thriving trade and cultural center, almost as if the civilization collapsed into obscurity, leaving only echoes behind. One of the most mysterious aspects of Tartessos is the question of its sudden disappearance. The ancient texts hint at a decline, but the cause remains a subject of debate. Some historians suggest that the civilization may have been destroyed by the Phoenicians, who, eager to control trade routes and resources, could have seen Tartessos as a rival and eliminated it. Others speculate that natural disasters, floods, earthquakes, or coastal erosion may have played a role, submerging the city beneath the river or sea. Still, there are no definitive answers, no sudden destruction that can be pinpointed in the archaeological record. What makes the mystery even more compelling is the fact that no one really knows where the Tartessians came from. Ancient sources indicate that their origins were somewhat obscure, and no clear archaeological evidence points to a distinct precursor culture. Did the Tartessians migrate from elsewhere, or did they develop independently from the indigenous Iberian tribes? Some scholars have suggested that the Tartessians were influenced by the Phoenicians, or even the Egyptians, drawing comparisons between their art, religious symbols, and customs. Others have proposed more speculative theories, suggesting that the Tartessians could have been a lost people from another part of the Mediterranean world entirely, a civilization that had long since vanished, but left behind remnants in the form of cultural exchange and mysterious artifacts. One of the most striking pieces of evidence regarding the Tartessians comes from the artifacts found at their sites. The Tartessians are known for their bronze work, with intricate jewelry, weapons, and ceremonial objects crafted with incredible precision. The level of craftsmanship displayed in these items suggests a high level of technical skill and a sophisticated society. Yet, the mysterious aspect of their art lies in the influence it seems to have drawn from cultures both far and wide. Some of the artwork and symbols found at Tartessos sites appear similar to those found in ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian cultures. Could the Tartessians have had a direct connection with these civilizations, or were they simply influenced by the extensive trade networks that existed at the time? Perhaps the most captivating and mysterious artifact linked to Tartessos is the so-called Tartessian writing system. A number of inscriptions have been discovered in the region, some of which seem to suggest that the Tartessians had their own distinct form of writing. However, the Tartessian script remains largely undeciphered, and its meaning continues to elude scholars. Was this a form of writing unique to the civilization, or was it part of a wider, forgotten language that once spanned across the Mediterranean? And why, after all this time, has it been so difficult to unlock the secrets of the Tartessian language? If this script holds the key to understanding the culture, politics, and religion of the Tartessians, what might we learn about a society that has left so few records? Some believe the mysteries of Tartessos may be deeper than even its archaeological remains suggest. Could this long-lost civilization have been part of a wider, even more ancient network of Mediterranean powers? There are theories, though unsupported by definitive evidence, that propose Tartessos could have been an offshoot of Atlantean civilization, a legendary culture that supposedly existed long before the rise of ancient Egypt. Plato's writings describe Atlantis as a powerful and technologically advanced society that eventually fell into ruin. Could Tartessos, with its mysterious disappearance, be a trace of this lost world, a civilization that knew secrets lost to time? And then there is the question of Tartessos's wealth. The texts speak of a civilization rich in precious metals, particularly silver, and its prosperity was said to rival that of the Phoenicians themselves. However, how exactly the Tartessians acquired such vast resources remains unclear. Was their wealth due to extensive mining, or did they engage in trade with distant lands, bringing precious materials from far-flung corners of the world? The absence of a conclusive answer to this question adds another layer of mystery to their story. How could a small society, by comparison, accumulate such great wealth? The mystery of Tartessos endures, its cities lost beneath the waters, its script unreadable, its people forgotten. What we know of their existence is mostly fragments, glimpses of a civilization that once thrived on the Mediterranean's edge and yet vanished without a trace. What caused its downfall? Why did it leave so little behind? Was Tartessos the victim of external forces, natural disasters, or internal collapse? Or perhaps, as with so many of history's great mysteries, the truth lies somewhere in the murky waters between legend and fact. What is clear, however, is that the story of Tartessos invites us to question what we know about the ancient world. How many other civilizations, perhaps even older or more influential, have left their mark upon history only to slip into the forgotten past? And what secrets still remain buried in the sands of time, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? As we leave behind the remnants of ancient civilizations and turn our gaze toward the Far East, we encounter a remarkable yet enigmatic sight: the Kofun burial mounds of Japan. Nestled in the fertile plains of the Kinki region, these ancient earthen mounds rise from the landscape like silent, ancient giants, their mysterious origins and purposes remaining shrouded in the fog of history. They are relics of a time long past, dating back to the 3rd to 7th centuries A.D., when Japan was on the cusp of transition, and much about its people, their customs, and their beliefs was still being formed. The Kofun, the name itself meaning old tomb in Japanese, are burial mounds that served as the final resting places for the elite of ancient Japanese society. The most famous of these mounds are the massive keyhole-shaped tombs, which have been discovered scattered across the Japanese countryside. These structures, while deceptively simple in appearance, were complex feats of engineering, built with an artistry that has left modern archaeologists in awe. Some mounds stretch over 400 meters in length, with deep, intricate ditches and stone-lined chambers. The sheer scale of these tombs, combined with the wealth of grave goods found within them, suggests that they were constructed for rulers, warriors, or other figures of great status, individuals whose legacies would be preserved for generations to come. One of the most stunning examples of these tombs is the Daisen Kofun, located in the Osaka prefecture. This tomb is not only the largest in Japan, but also one of the largest burial mounds in the world. With a keyhole shape that stretches over 480 meters in length, Daisen Kofun is believed to be the burial site of Emperor Nintoku, a legendary figure from Japan's early history. The tomb is surrounded by moats, which were dug with such precision that they can still be seen from space today, a testament to the sophistication of the people who built it. Yet, despite the grandeur of these burial sites, many questions remain. Most notably, who exactly were the individuals buried within these mounds, and what do these tombs truly represent? Though the existence of the Kofun mounds is well documented, the identities of those buried within them remain a mystery. The theory that these mounds served as burial sites for rulers is largely based on the fact that many of them are accompanied by large quantities of grave goods, including bronze mirrors, weapons, and ornate jewelry, items associated with elite status in early Japanese society. Yet, there is no definitive evidence linking these tombs to specific historical figures, leaving us with the unsettling question: who were these rulers? And why did they choose to be buried in such elaborate yet cryptic ways? The most perplexing aspect of the Kofun burial mounds, however, lies in the unexplained designs of the tombs themselves. The distinctive keyhole shape, which resembles a key when viewed from above, is one of the most recognizable features of these burial sites. Archaeologists have speculated that the shape may symbolize a key or keyhole, perhaps related to spiritual beliefs concerning death, the afterlife, or access to another realm. Some even propose that the shape may have been a symbol of the ruler's power, with the tomb serving as both a burial site and a metaphorical gateway to the afterlife. Yet, despite these theories, the true significance of the keyhole shape remains speculative. Why such an elaborate design? Why a symbol so enigmatic? Another fascinating and unresolved mystery surrounding the Kofun mounds is the grave goods that have been found in the tombs. Many of these items, such as bronze mirrors and jade ornaments, suggest that the Kofun civilization had strong ties to other ancient cultures, particularly those of China and Korea. The trade networks that spanned the region during this period were likely robust, and the Kofun people were undoubtedly influenced by the cultural and technological advances of their neighbors. However, certain artifacts found in the Kofun tombs defy easy explanation. For instance, Japanese-made clay figurines, known as haniwa, are often found near the tombs. These figures, which depict everything from animals to warriors, were placed as offerings or guardians for the dead. However, the exact role of the haniwa remains unclear. Were they meant to serve as spiritual protectors, as some believe, or did they have another, more mysterious purpose? The role of the haniwa has led some to speculate about the spiritual or religious beliefs of the Kofun people. Could these figures have represented a form of ancestor worship, or were they part of some kind of ritualistic burial practice? Given the lack of written records from this period, it is difficult to know for sure. Yet the presence of these intricate, human-like figures near the tombs raises further questions about the belief systems of the time. Were the Kofun people, in fact, engaging in a form of shamanism? Or was their burial practice part of a larger, organized religion that we have yet to fully understand? While the grave goods are intriguing, the lack of definitive written records from this period of Japanese history continues to present a challenge for researchers. The Kofun period, spanning roughly from the 3rd to the 7th century, is an era where the foundation of what we now know as Japan was being laid. Yet, there are no clear records of the rulers, their actions, or their reigns. We do know that this was the time of the rise of the Yamato clan, which would later become the imperial family of Japan, but the connection between these mounds and the Yamato rulers is speculative at best. Why do we have no surviving historical documents from such a pivotal time in Japanese history? Could it be that the people of the Kofun period intentionally erased their past, leaving behind only the enigmatic mounds and their mysterious contents as clues? Or perhaps, as some have suggested, the lack of records is simply a result of the loss of early written language in Japan. While it's clear that the Kofun people had access to written forms of communication, particularly through the influence of China, the absence of documentation may reflect a broader pattern in the development of Japanese society, a society that valued oral tradition over written records, or one that saw written words as secondary to the power and significance of monumental structures like the Kofun burial mounds. The sheer mystery surrounding the Kofun mounds has led to a variety of speculative theories, some more plausible than others. Could the Kofun tombs be part of an even more ancient tradition, one that stretches back beyond the rise of the Yamato clan? Some fringe theories have suggested that the Kofun mounds are not just burial sites, but astronomical markers, aligned with the stars or celestial events. Others have pointed to possible extraterrestrial connections, suggesting that the advanced knowledge required to construct such massive tombs might have been influenced by beings from beyond the Earth. While these ideas remain on the fringe, they reflect the depth of the mystery and the human desire to understand the unknown. What is clear, however, is that the Kofun mounds are more than just burial sites. They are artifacts of a lost time, holding within them the echoes of a people whose story has never been fully told. Who were the rulers buried within these mounds? What drove them to construct such monumental tombs, and why did they leave behind so few clues to their lives and beliefs? What secrets do the haniwa figurines and grave goods hold, and what can we learn from them about the spiritual world of the Kofun people? As we continue to explore the mysteries of the Kofun burial mounds, we are left to ponder the unanswered questions, and perhaps, one day, we may finally uncover the lost truths hidden beneath these ancient earthworks. As we shift our focus from the grandeur of ancient tombs and the mystery of lost civilizations, we turn our attention to a more subtle, yet equally perplexing phenomenon that has captivated historians, archaeologists, and travelers for centuries. At the western bank of the Nile River, near the ancient city of Thebes, modern-day Luxor, stand the colossal remnants of what was once a magnificent temple dedicated to the pharaoh Amenhotep III. These two towering statues, known as the Colossi of Memnon, are all that remain of the once glorious structure that would have stood as a testament to the power and grandeur of one of Egypt's most renowned pharaohs. However, these statues are not only famous for their size or their historical significance, but for a peculiar and eerie phenomenon that has mystified those who have come across them for millennia: the acoustic sounds they produce. Standing at over 18 meters tall, the Colossi of Memnon are monumental stone figures, each depicting the pharaoh seated on a throne, his hands resting upon his knees, with serene yet imposing expressions on their faces. The statues are made from massive blocks of quartzite sandstone, and though they have weathered centuries of erosion, earthquakes, and human neglect, they remain awe-inspiring in their scale. These monumental statues were originally placed at the entrance to the temple of Amenhotep III, and were meant to represent the immortality of the pharaoh, ensuring that his legacy would endure long after his death. Yet, it is not just the statue's imposing physical presence that draws attention. There is something far more mysterious about them: a sound. For as long as they have been recorded in history, the Colossi of Memnon have been said to emit strange, musical noises, especially at dawn, when the sun's rays first touch the statues. These sounds, sometimes described as a humming, a whistling, or a musical tone, are not random or easily explained. They have a rhythm, a resonance, as though the statues themselves are alive and speaking from the depths of ancient time. Over the centuries, the phenomenon has been variously interpreted by the ancient Egyptians, by Greek and Roman travelers, and even by modern-day scientists, as something deeply symbolic, perhaps even supernatural. The phenomenon, which was documented as early as the 1st century BC, when the Greek writer Strabo first wrote about it, has always sparked intrigue. Strabo described how, at dawn, the statues would emit a sound that resembled the cry of a guttural voice, or the noise made by a bowstring being plucked. This description was corroborated by Pliny the Elder, a Roman scholar, who similarly noted the strange hum, suggesting that it might be the result of the statue's resonating properties. Ancient visitors, like Greek philosopher Pausanias, also mentioned the sounds, which, to them, carried an almost prophetic significance. According to local legend, the sound was attributed to the spirit of the pharaoh, whose voice could still be heard even after death, speaking to the living. As with many things that do not fit neatly into conventional understanding, the sound of the Colossi of Memnon has given rise to numerous theories and explanations, some grounded in natural phenomena, others more speculative in nature. Over the centuries, ancient Egyptians attributed the phenomenon to the god Ammon, whose voice, they believed, resonated through the statues, reminding the people of his divine presence. In this context, the sound was seen as a divine manifestation, a blessing or omen from the gods. As time passed, and the statues began to crumble under the forces of nature, the sound remained, continuing to perplex all who came near. But, by the 2nd century AD, a major earthquake struck the region, causing significant damage to the Colossi. After this event, the frequency of the sounds diminished, though it was still heard intermittently for centuries afterward. Local inhabitants began to associate the noises with the weeping of Memnon, the legendary Ethiopian king who, according to Greek myth, was transformed into a statue after his death and was said to mourn daily as he was struck by the rays of the sun. The question of what caused the sound was not fully explored until more modern times, when archaeological and geological investigations sought to find a scientific explanation. One of the most widely accepted theories today is that the noise is a result of thermal expansion. As the temperature of the Nile Valley fluctuates dramatically between day and night, the statue's stone material, especially in the hot desert climate, expands and contracts. This process causes certain parts of the statues to vibrate, creating an acoustic effect that produces the hum or whistle. The phenomenon would be most noticeable at sunrise, when the temperature change is greatest, and the statues are exposed to the first rays of sunlight after a night of coolness. While this theory of thermal expansion offers a plausible explanation for the phenomenon, it does not fully explain the consistency or the musical quality of the sounds. The sounds are not random. They seem to follow a particular pattern, leading some researchers to speculate that there may be something more complex at play. Could the acoustics of the site be the result of some ancient engineering technique, a deliberate design that the builders of the statues incorporated to create a symbolic or ritualistic auditory experience? Could the sound have been a form of ritual communication, perhaps a means of connecting with the divine, or of marking an important event or transition in the spiritual landscape? Another explanation, though more speculative, suggests that the sounds of the Colossi may have been part of an ancient acoustic design incorporated into the temple complex of Amenhotep III. Perhaps the ancient Egyptians were aware of certain principles of sound, resonance, and vibration that have since been forgotten, and the statues were designed not only to stand as monumental figures, but also to function as part of a larger ritualistic system that included sound and vibration. In this theory, the resonance of the statues would have been an integral part of the sacred experience of entering the temple complex, an auditory manifestation of the divine that would serve to connect worshippers with the gods. The fascination with the Colossi of Memnon acoustic phenomenon only deepens when we consider the possible spiritual or metaphysical implications of the sound. If the statue's hum or whistle was believed to be the voice of the pharaoh, a supernatural echo from beyond the grave, could it have had a profound effect on the people who encountered it? Was it a reminder of the pharaoh's eternal power, or perhaps a call to the gods, resonating through the ages? Despite the numerous theories, the true nature of the sound remains elusive, with no definitive explanation that fully accounts for its complexity. As we peer into the past, we are left with the question, what did the ancients know about sound, resonance, and vibration that we have long since forgotten? Was the phenomenon simply an accident of nature, or was it a deliberate, engineered experience designed to evoke a sense of the sacred, the supernatural, or the divine? The Colossi of Memnon stand today, silent and still, but they remain filled with mystery. Reminders of a long-forgotten world that still holds secrets beyond our understanding. Even as the sound has all but ceased, the questions linger. What, truly, was the purpose of the sound? Was it an accidental resonance, an echo of nature, or was it something more? Perhaps a divine message from a distant past that still calls to us across the centuries. The mystery of the Colossi of Memnon may never be fully solved, but in that uncertainty lies the beauty of the enigma, a connection to a time long gone, yet still echoing in the sands of Egypt. As we leave behind the monumental statues of ancient Egypt, where time seems to slow and the whispers of history echo through the sands, we turn our attention to a different kind of mystery, one that lies in the very fabric of ancient Egyptian culture, hidden beneath layers of time and forgotten artifacts. This is the enigma of the lost golden tongues of ancient Egypt, a riddle that has puzzled historians, archaeologists, and linguists for centuries. Imagine, if you will, a temple deep in the heart of Egypt, the sun setting behind its towering walls, casting long shadows over the weathered stones. Inside, the silence is thick, broken only by the faint rustling of the wind. And there, within this sacred space, lies a treasure unlike any other. Objects not of gold, but of words, written in a script that once carried the voices of gods and kings. The tongues, forged from the richest metals and inscribed with the most sacred of languages, were said to carry the power of speech itself. They were not merely tools for communication. They were believed to be the very vessels of divine expression. What happened to these golden tongues, symbols of the divine and the sacred, once held in the highest reverence by the ancient Egyptians? The answer to that question remains one of history's most perplexing mysteries. The lost golden tongues are thought to have been part of the ancient Egyptian rituals that governed life in the temples and tombs, ceremonies that connected the people of Egypt with their gods. Hieratic priests would use these sacred objects in acts of divine speech, reciting prayers, invocations, and sacred texts from the gods to ensure divine favor and protection. It was believed that the tongue itself, be it carved in precious metal or stone, possessed a mystical power to speak the will of the gods and bestow blessings upon the land. The golden tongues were described as ritual objects, deeply tied to the power of speech and the divine word. Ancient Egypt was a civilization steeped in the mystical and the spiritual, where every word had power, and the ability to communicate with the divine was not a privilege, but a sacred duty. This belief in the power of language and the gods' ability to speak through the human voice was central to the Egyptian worldview. And at the very heart of this tradition were the tongues, golden, sacred, imbued with divine energy. But what happened to them? The earliest accounts of these mysterious tongues come from ancient texts and inscriptions found in the ruins of Thebes and other major Egyptian cities. These accounts tell of sacred rituals, in which the tongues were used in ceremonies to invoke divine power. Thebes, the city of the gods, was said to have been the center of this divine language, where the golden tongues were kept within the most sacred chambers of the temple, guarded by priests, and only revealed to the highest of kings. These accounts are often vague, mentioning only the sacred nature of the tongues and the ceremonies surrounding them. No physical examples of these golden tongues have ever been definitively identified, and their exact nature remains a subject of intense speculation. Some believe that the golden tongues were actual objects, tangible, solid pieces of gold that were inscribed with divine language. Others believe that they were metaphysical constructs, spiritual symbols imbued with divine power, more akin to mystical artifacts than actual physical objects. There are those, too, who suggest that the tongues were part of an ancient form of communication, one that transcended the limitations of the human voice. Could these tongues have been audio instruments designed to amplify the voice of the priest and carry the words of the gods? Some have posited that the tongues were musical instruments, bells, horns, or pipes made of gold, used in rituals to summon the divine. These ancient instruments might have created a resonance so powerful that it was believed to carry the very essence of the gods. But if they existed, where are they now? The answers to this question are as elusive as the tongues themselves. Some scholars suggest that they were looted during the many periods of turmoil that plagued Egypt's long history. The temples and tombs of Egypt have long been raided by conquerors, robbers, and invaders, their treasures looted for the riches they contained. It is entirely possible that the golden tongues, like so many other sacred objects, were lost to history during one of these raids. But the absence of physical evidence leaves a trail of unanswered questions. Others have speculated that the golden tongues were not destroyed, but hidden. Could these sacred objects have been deliberately concealed by the priests or the pharaohs, as a means of protecting them from invaders or would-be thieves? The idea that ancient Egyptians may have hidden such powerful objects is not beyond the realm of possibility. Temples were often built with secret chambers, hidden vaults, and passages designed to safeguard the treasures and knowledge of the gods. Could the golden tongues still be buried, waiting to be uncovered by a future archaeologist? Another theory suggests that the golden tongues were destroyed in a manner meant to sever their power. Ancient Egyptian religious practices were deeply tied to concepts of purity and spiritual correctness. It is possible that the tongues were destroyed or melted down as part of a ritual cleansing, to remove any connection to a forgotten or corrupt form of worship. This could explain why no physical examples have been found. If they were deliberately destroyed, All that remains is their legacy in the written texts and oral traditions of ancient Egypt. Yet, even if these golden tongues never existed in the way we imagine them, the mystery of their significance and their disappearance persists. Could they have been a symbol of divine speech, and the true nature of their power is yet to be fully understood? What if the tongues were not physical objects at all, but representations of something even more profound, a mystical connection to the gods that transcended material form? Could the tongues have represented a language that was never meant to be spoken aloud, but instead, one that could only be understood through meditation and spiritual attunement? As we examine the history of Egypt and its rich spiritual traditions, we are reminded of how much remains hidden, even in a culture as well documented as that of the ancient Egyptians. The golden tongues, if they were ever real, remain an enduring enigma, one that continues to captivate the imagination. The idea that the ancients might have possessed such a powerful, mystical tool for communicating with the divine is an idea that is both fascinating and elusive. We are left with more questions than answers. Did the lost golden tongues exist? Were they symbols of divine power, or were they something far more practical, tools used in rituals to amplify the voice of the gods? Could they still be hidden, waiting to be discovered, or were they destroyed long ago in a ritual of purification? Perhaps the true mystery of the golden tongues lies not in the objects themselves, but in the legacy of their mystery, a mystery that invites us to explore the intersection of language, spirituality, and ancient power. Even if the golden tongues remain lost to time, their story endures, carrying with it the echoes of an... As we venture further into the shadows of history, we arrive at a site in Dorset, England, where an ancient mystery lies buried beneath the earth. Picture this: a quiet field nestled along the rolling hills of southern England, its serene beauty belying the gruesome secret it holds. Beneath the soil, hidden for centuries, is the story of the Headless Vikings of Dorset, a chilling enigma that has puzzled archaeologists and historians for over 100 years. In 1935, during an excavation at a site known as St. Lawrence's Churchyard near the village of Winfrith, Newburgh, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a group of Viking warriors. But there was something unusual about these remains. Each one was headless. Not a single skull was found with the bodies. The discovery was as bizarre as it was unsettling. How did these warriors meet their end? And why were they decapitated? The evidence found in Dorset was part of a broader pattern of similar Viking burial sites scattered across Europe, where decapitated remains have been discovered in strange, often unexplained contexts. But the Dorset discovery stands out, as it is one of the few places where multiple headless bodies have been uncovered together in a single burial ground. At first glance, this might appear to be just another grisly tale of medieval conflict, another episode in the endless cycle of bloodshed that characterized the Viking Age. But as the investigation into these Viking graves progressed, a far more complex and mysterious picture began to emerge. The headless bodies in Dorset were not buried in a typical Viking fashion. The Vikings, known for their elaborate burial rituals, often laid their dead to rest with weapons, armor, and personal belongings, ensuring that the deceased could enjoy the afterlife in comfort. However, the bodies found in Dorset lacked these markers of Viking tradition. Instead, they were hastily buried in unmarked graves with minimal artifacts. The lack of any ceremonial objects raises a crucial question. Who were these Vikings, and why were they buried in such an unceremonious manner? What makes this mystery even more intriguing is the location of the burial site itself. Dorset, though situated on the southern coast of England, was not known to be a major Viking stronghold. Most of the Viking invasions in the 9th and 10th centuries occurred along the northern and eastern coasts of Britain, particularly in York and the surrounding areas. So, what were these Vikings doing in Dorset? How did they end up there? And why were they treated in such a brutal, disrespectful manner after their deaths? To understand the significance of the headless Vikings, we must first consider what is known about Viking burial customs. The Vikings were deeply spiritual people, with a strong belief in the afterlife. To them, a warrior's death was not simply the end of their life. It marked their transition into another world. For this reason, they practiced elaborate rituals designed to honor the deceased and prepare them for their journey into the afterlife. Skulls and heads, which often symbolized the spirit of the individual, were regarded as powerful symbols in Viking culture. Decapitation, therefore, would have been seen as a profound act. So why were these particular Vikings decapitated? Were they punished posthumously for some transgression, or were they killed in such a manner to prevent them from reaching the afterlife? Some have suggested that this could have been a ritualistic execution. Perhaps these individuals were seen as traitors or enemies of the Viking cause. After all, decapitation has long been a symbol of dishonor and disgrace in many cultures. One prevailing theory is that these men were victims of a ritual sacrifice, part of an ancient tradition that involved killing captives or enemies in a brutal manner, followed by decapitation. In this theory, the headless bodies found in Dorset were not merely victims of war, but of a ritualized punishment, performed by other Vikings in the name of appeasing their gods or fulfilling some dark spiritual practice. The body's lack of adornment and the rough burial may suggest that they were sacrificed in haste, possibly as part of a larger ritualistic or religious practice. Another possible explanation could be linked to the Christianization of Viking society in the 10th century. The Viking conversion to Christianity brought with it a variety of changes to the traditional ways in which Viking society functioned. As Christianity spread, it began to conflict with many of the older pagan rituals, and this may have led to the execution or removal of those who adhered to the old ways. Could these headless Vikings have been the victims of a religious purge, punished for clinging to the old pagan practices in a Christianized world? Yet another possibility is that the headless burial might have been a symbol of shame. Perhaps these Vikings were not warriors at all, but criminals, captured during a raid or rebellion only to be executed as an example to others. The lack of a proper Viking burial, combined with the act of decapitation, suggests that these men were seen as unworthy of honor. The act of decapitation could have been a deliberate attempt to erase their identities, ensuring that they would be forgotten in both life and death. But there are also theories that reach far beyond the conventional understanding of Viking culture. Some have posited that these headless bodies are not the remains of ordinary Vikings, but of foreign invaders, perhaps even Celts or Saxons, who were captured by the Vikings during a raid and decapitated as a symbol of conquest. These theories lean toward the idea that these men were not part of the Viking community at all, but were instead enemy combatants punished in the most brutal of ways. As with so many mysteries of the ancient world, the truth behind the headless Vikings of Dorset remains elusive. Their identities and the reason for their decapitation may never be fully understood. The skeletal remains, still scattered across the Dorset countryside, offer us only a glimpse into a violent and turbulent past. Their heads may be lost forever, but their story endures, leaving us to wonder what really happened to these men, and why they were buried in such a strange and unsettling manner. Perhaps, like so many other unsolved mysteries, the answer lies not in the physical remains, but in the unanswered questions that linger in the air, carried on the winds that blow over the English fields. What did these Vikings do to deserve such an ignominious end? Were they truly traitors or victims of a ritualistic purge? Or were they simply caught in the tides of history, lost to time, their identities forever obscured by the sands of the past? We may never know for certain, but the mystery of the headless Vikings of Dorset remains a haunting reminder of how much we still have yet to uncover about the ancient world and its forgotten rituals. As we journey deeper into the enigmatic world of ancient Egypt, we encounter an object that has intrigued archaeologists, historians, and explorers for centuries: the Canopic jars, These beautifully crafted vessels, seemingly simple at first glance, carry with them a story shrouded in mystery, ritual, and perhaps even something darker than we can imagine. Imagine, if you will, the dim light of a tomb in the Valley of the Kings, where the air is thick with the weight of ancient secrets. In front of you lies a set of exquisitely painted jars, their surfaces decorated with scenes from the afterlife, gods, and the sacred symbols of Egyptian religion. But these jars, despite their artistic beauty, are not merely ornamental. They were part of an ancient Egyptian burial practice designed to safeguard the deceased's journey into the afterlife. The question, however, remains: why did these objects hold such significance, and what deeper meaning lies hidden within their design? The canopic jars were not just containers for the deceased's organs. They were integral to one of the most complex and mysterious rituals in the ancient world, the preservation of the body and soul for eternity. As part of the mummification process, the organs of the deceased, lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines, were removed, carefully preserved, and placed inside these jars. The heart, often seen as the seat of the soul, was typically left within the body. The jars themselves were then placed in the tomb alongside the mummy, symbolizing the preservation of the individual's essential components in preparation for their afterlife. What is perhaps most intriguing about these vessels is not only their function, but the choice of figures depicted on their lids. Each jar was topped with a lid in the shape of a god or goddess, corresponding to the specific organ it contained. The liver was often protected by the goddess Imseti, who was human in form. The lungs were guarded by Hapi, a baboon-headed deity. The stomach was watched over by Duamutef, a jackal-headed god, and the intestines were safeguarded by Kebesenuef, a falcon-headed god. The fact that each organ had its own divine guardian hints at a deeply held belief in the delicate balance of life, death, and the forces that governed the universe. However, it is not just the jar's design or their association with the afterlife that raises questions. It's the mystery of the practice itself. Why did ancient Egyptians place such emphasis on preserving the body's organs? Was it merely an act of religious devotion, or was there a more profound and hidden purpose? Could the practice of using canopic jars also have been tied to secret knowledge, esoteric rituals, or forgotten beliefs that have yet to be uncovered by modern archaeology? In ancient Egypt, life and death were part of a continuum. The afterlife, with its promises of immortality, was not simply a continuation of the earthly existence. It was an entirely different realm, governed by its own set of rules. The careful preservation of the body and its organs through the process of mummification was believed to ensure the soul's safe passage into this next world. But what of the soul itself? Was it truly the body's organs that were required to journey with the deceased? Or was there something more symbolic about the way the Egyptians viewed the physical body's role in the afterlife? We know that the Egyptians believed in the duality of existence, the physical body and the spiritual soul. This is evident in the Ka and Ba, two components of the soul. The Ka was the life force, which needed sustenance, and the Ba was the personality, able to travel between the physical and spiritual realms. Could the canopic jars, then, have had a role in preserving the Ka? Were they not just vessels for organs, but sacred objects designed to help anchor the soul in the afterlife? Moreover, the mystery deepens when we consider the fact that, while canopic jars were used extensively during the New Kingdom period, circa 1550 to 1070 BC, the practice of storing organs in jars goes back even further, to the Old Kingdom period, when pyramid burials first took place. The evolution of these burial practices, from the more rudimentary embalming techniques of earlier dynasties to the sophisticated mummification of later periods, raises more questions than answers. How did the ancient Egyptians come to this intricate knowledge of the body and the afterlife? Was it based solely on religious ideology, or were there other influences at play, perhaps from other ancient civilizations with esoteric knowledge? Interestingly, some theorists have suggested that the Egyptians' knowledge of the human body and its preservation may not have been entirely their own. Could ancient Egyptians have been influenced by foreign cultures, or even by beings with knowledge far beyond the ordinary understanding of their time? There have long been fringe theories suggesting extraterrestrial influences on the technological and cultural advances of ancient civilizations. While these ideas are highly speculative, they persist in the broader conversation about Egypt's ancient mysteries. Could the Canopic jars, with their sophisticated craftsmanship and symbolism, be evidence of lost knowledge from an ancient, advanced civilization, or something beyond human comprehension? Another theory that cannot be overlooked is the mystical properties of the substances used in the jars. Many of the materials employed to create these jars were believed to have spiritual significance. The lids, for instance, were often made from stone, such as alabaster or limestone, materials that had long been associated with purification and protection. The jars themselves, crafted from wood or pottery, were often decorated with vibrant colors and inscriptions, invoking gods and spells meant to protect the deceased from malevolent forces. Could these materials have been more than just functional? Was there something intrinsic about them that helped the deceased in their passage to the afterlife? Despite the many centuries of study and research, much about the Canopic jars remains elusive. While modern archaeology has unraveled many aspects of ancient Egyptian burial practices, these mysterious vessels remain something of an enigma. Their precise role, as well as the deeper meanings behind their use, still leave room for interpretation and debate. And with each new discovery of a tomb, we are left with more questions than answers. Could the jars hold the key to a more profound understanding of the Egyptian belief system? Were they simply containers for organs, or did they hold deeper, metaphysical significance? Why did the Egyptians place such profound importance on these objects? And perhaps most haunting of all, what ancient knowledge was contained in those jars, and has it been lost to history, or is it waiting to be uncovered? The Canopic jars are more than just symbols of death. They are gateways to a forgotten world, one that continues to challenge and intrigue us, even thousands of years later. As we look upon these mysterious artifacts, we are left to ponder. What other secrets might they still hold, hidden beneath layers of time and dust, waiting to be uncovered? Perhaps the answer, like so many others in ancient Egypt, remains locked within the walls of the tombs, whispered only to those who dare to seek the truth. As we delve deeper into the corridors of ancient history, we arrive at a location not often discussed in mainstream narratives, but one that pulses with an air of mystery and unresolved questions: the unopened crypt of King Nabonidus of Babylon. A figure whose reign and final resting place seem to have slipped between the pages of time, leaving behind a legacy of intrigue that invites both scholarly investigation and speculative wonder. Imagine standing amidst the ancient ruins of Babylon, once one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. The Ishtar Gate, with its bold blue tiles and images of mythical beasts, rises before you. The air is thick with the weight of history, but it is also punctuated by something more haunting. The crypt of Nabonidus, the last king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, remains undisturbed, locked in a state of preservation and silence. It is a place shrouded in secrecy, its contents, its purpose, and its very location locked away beneath the sands of time. Nabonidus, who ruled from 556 to 539 BC, is not as widely known as his predecessor, Nebuchadnezzar II, the builder of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Yet, Nabonidus himself is an enigmatic figure, whose reign saw significant shifts in Babylonian religion and culture. His reign was marked by religious reforms that alienated many Babylonians. He famously dedicated himself to the worship of the moon god Sin, to the exclusion of Babylon's primary deity, Marduk. This religious conflict led to social and political unrest. But what of Nabonidus's personal end? Was his final resting place as mysterious as his reign? The crypt, believed to be located beneath the Temple of Sin in the ancient city of Tema in modern-day Saudi Arabia, offers little in the way of concrete information. Despite significant archaeological efforts, it remains unexplored and unopened. Even as modern researchers use advanced technologies like ground-penetrating radar, the location and condition of Nabonidus's final resting place remain a puzzle. In fact, much of Nabonidus's personal history is obscured. After his defeat at the hands of Cyrus the Great, the Persian king who would conquer Babylon in 539 BC, Nabonidus was exiled. His fate is not fully understood. Some accounts suggest he was allowed to live out his days in a form of quiet imprisonment, while others claim he was kept in relative comfort. The idea of exile itself is a curious one. What did it mean for a king to be removed from his throne but not executed? Could it be that Nabonidus's crypt was designed as a final sanctuary, one that he could continue to inhabit even in death? What is most perplexing about Nabonidus's crypt is its complete lack of historical documentation. Unlike many rulers of antiquity, who had their tombs meticulously recorded and often looted by later civilizations, Nabonidus's final resting place remained elusive. Why was there no grand monument to his reign, no elaborate mausoleum like those of his predecessors? Even though his reign lasted several decades, there are no detailed accounts of his burial. What, then, might this crypt contain? What secrets might it hold that the world has yet to uncover? The theories surrounding the crypt are diverse. Some believe it could hold treasures. A king's burial, after all, was often accompanied by wealth. Babylonian royalty were known to be buried with objects meant to aid their passage into the afterlife: precious jewels, carved stone tablets, and finely crafted weapons. Yet, considering Nabonidus's religious leanings and his exile, could his burial have been deliberately simple, with little regard for the traditional splendor of Babylonian royal tombs? But beyond treasure, what if the crypt held something more significant? A key to understanding Nabonidus's complex relationship with religion and power? His religious reforms, the focus on the moon god Sin over Marduk, are some of the most puzzling aspects of his reign. Did this choice reflect an inner conflict or desire to preserve his legacy beyond the traditional gods of Babylon? Was the crypt perhaps constructed to reflect this transition, with elements representing the older Babylonian religion alongside the moon god, a melding of two belief systems? As we shift from historical analysis to more speculative ideas, the crypt's unopened nature sparks even wilder theories. Some have suggested that the crypt was not just a burial place for a fallen king, but perhaps a ritualistic chamber. Was Nabonidus's crypt built with hidden mechanisms that could only be activated by certain individuals or under specific conditions? Could there be an uncharted connection between his crypt and the astrological practices that were central to his reign? There is, after all, a rich tradition of astral divination in ancient Mesopotamia, and Nabonidus himself was particularly interested in celestial omens. Could the crypt somehow be aligned with the stars, hidden in a location that would reveal its purpose only at the right moment in time? And then, there is the question of the crypt's location. Though it is believed to lie beneath the ruins of Tema, some suggest the possibility that it may never be found. If it is still undiscovered, what could be the reason for its concealment? Is it possible that the crypt, in some sense, evaded the efforts of archaeologists and explorers, slipping further into the sands of time as if it has been intentionally hidden from the modern world? The mystery of the unopened crypt is one that has remained unsolved for over 2 millennia, and it offers as many questions as answers. Some may dismiss the idea of hidden treasure or secret rituals, But there is no denying that the crypt of Nabonidus, like so many other ancient mysteries, taps into a deep-seated curiosity about the nature of kingship, religion, and the afterlife. What, truly, lies within its undisturbed walls? Could the crypt of Nabonidus be a time capsule of an era long past, waiting to reveal secrets that have been locked away for millennia? As we consider the fate of Nabonidus and his final resting place, we are left to wonder, could this crypt hold the key to understanding not just one man's life, but the very essence of Babylonian civilization itself? Will it remain buried beneath the sands, its secrets forever out of reach? Or will future explorers unlock its mysteries? The answers, it seems, may be hidden in plain sight, or perhaps they have yet to be uncovered. As the soft light of the setting sun filters through the dense, humid jungle of southern Mexico, the air carries an ancient weight, as if the very land itself holds the secrets of centuries past. Beneath the green canopy, the stone remnants of a once great civilization slowly emerge from the earth. One of the most enigmatic legacies of this long-forgotten culture lies in a series of rare and exquisite jade masks buried within the ruins of the Olmec civilization, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica. The Olmec, whose society flourished between 1500 and 400 BC, are credited with many firsts in the region: the invention of the Mesoamerican ball game, the concept of zero, and the earliest monumental stone sculptures in the Americas. But it is their jade masks, discovered in sites like La Venta and San Lorenzo, that have sparked more fascination than almost any other artifact. These masks, carved from the finest jade, are not only objects of artistic achievement, but also relics of an incomprehensible culture, whose mysteries still confound historians, archaeologists, and scholars alike. The jade itself is breathtaking, rich green, translucent, and smooth, crafted from a material so precious it was traded over vast distances, well beyond the Olmec heartland. Each mask, with its large, prominent eyes and subtly carved features, radiates an uncanny sense of life. The craftsmanship is so precise that they appear almost lifelike, capturing the spirit of an individual or perhaps even a deity. Some masks feature symbolic elements, with intricate designs carved into the stone, but what's most perplexing is the sheer mystery surrounding their intended purpose. At first glance, these masks might seem like simple funerary objects, meant to adorn the faces of the dead. Indeed, some have been found in tombs, placed over the skulls of important individuals, and they may have served as a way to honor these figures in the afterlife. But the true significance of these jade masks goes beyond the boundaries of mere burial rites. Some scholars suggest that they were not simply decorative, but that they played a central role in ritualistic ceremonies, acting as conduits between the living and the divine. Take, for example, the La Venta mask, one of the most famous examples of Olmec jade craftsmanship. Discovered in the La Venta archaeological site, the mask is thought to represent a powerful leader or deity. Its piercing eyes and furrowed brow create an expression that seems both stern and otherworldly. It is often referred to as the king mask, suggesting that it may have been a portrait of an individual of high status, perhaps even a ruler. But why jade? And why was this particular material so sacred to the Olmec? Jade was revered in Olmec society not only for its beauty, but for its perceived mystical properties. It was considered the stone of life, and the Olmec believed it was imbued with the essence of immortality. Its color, reminiscent of lush, vibrant vegetation, connected it to fertility, and it may have been used to symbolize the natural cycles of death and rebirth. The jade masks, then, could have served as symbols of divine power or markers of a ruler's connection to the supernatural realm. This would make sense, as the Olmec were known for their strong religious beliefs and their view of rulers as semi-divine figures. Yet even as scholars explore the potential ritualistic and symbolic meanings of these masks, there are unsettling questions that remain unanswered. Why were so many jade masks found buried beneath the earth in various locations, scattered across Olmec sites? Were they offerings to the gods, or did they serve another, darker purpose? Could these masks have been used as part of a religious or royal sacrifice? The placement of these masks, often found in close proximity to monumental stone heads or altars, suggests that they were not simply offerings placed casually, but carefully arranged in the context of rituals of great importance. The complexity of the mask's role only deepens when we consider the unusual number of masks depicting faces that do not seem entirely human. Some of these artifacts have features that are not found in the typical Olmec portraiture of rulers or deities. Instead, they suggest hybrid forms, perhaps gods, monsters, or creatures from Olmec mythology. One such mask, found at the site of San Lorenzo, is carved in the shape of a jaguar's face, a creature sacred to many Mesoamerican cultures for its fierce and mysterious nature. Could these masks represent a form of totemic or spirit worship, where the mask was thought to possess the spirit of the animal or deity it depicted? Or could the masks have been masks of power, used in ceremonies to invoke the strength and fury of the jaguar god? But what if there was more to these masks than even the ancient Olmec realized? What if, buried beneath the layers of their tangible and symbolic meanings, there is a hidden truth about the Olmec that we have yet to uncover? The Olmec civilization's sudden appearance in Mesoamerica, with their advanced knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and religion, has long puzzled scholars. Where did they come from? And how did they develop such sophisticated skills in carving, metallurgy, and engineering? Was there an influence that we have not yet fully understood? Some fringe theories suggest that the Olmec may have had contact with ancient cultures from distant lands, even as far as Egypt or the Near East. This theory is based on the suggestion that there are similarities in the artistic representations of Olmec stone heads and ancient African or Mediterranean sculptures. Could it be that the Olmec, with their mastery of jade carving, were somehow connected to a broader, more ancient network of civilizations that spanned continents? Could the masks themselves be pieces of a larger puzzle, containing clues to ancient knowledge that was lost over time? As we explore these theories, we must be cautious not to drift too far into the realm of speculation without evidence. Still, the striking features of the Olmec jade masks continue to captivate the imagination of archaeologists and enthusiasts alike. They evoke a sense of wonder, not just because of their artistic mastery, but because they represent a window into a civilization that has left few written records, and whose religious and social customs remain largely a mystery. And then, there's the question of the mask makers themselves. The complexity of the jade masks suggests a level of craftsmanship that goes beyond what we typically associate with early Mesoamerican cultures. How did the Olmec, with their limited technological tools, manage to carve such intricate and delicate masks from the toughest of stones? Did they have knowledge of advanced techniques, possibly passed down from a lost civilization, or was their expertise simply the result of generations of practice and trial? One of the most intriguing aspects of the Olmec jade masks is their persistence in the archaeological record. Despite the fall of the Olmec civilization and the rise of new Mesoamerican cultures like the Maya and the Aztec, these jade objects seem to retain a lasting significance. They are sometimes seen as ritual objects, used in the performance of religious ceremonies, but the masks also may have held a more profound purpose as symbols of the unbroken connection between the gods and the rulers of the Olmec. It's this enduring connection, one that persists through the mystery of these masks, that suggests a deeper spiritual significance that we may never fully comprehend. For now, the mystery of the jade masks of the Olmec remains unsolved. As we stand at the edge of ancient ruins, staring at the enigmatic faces carved into jade, one can't help but wonder, what secrets did these faces hold, And what were they meant to convey? Were they markers of divinity, symbols of power, or windows into an ancient worldview we can barely begin to understand? The masks, now locked away in museums and collections, still invite the curious to explore the mysteries of the Olmec, a civilization whose legacy, though veiled in shadows, still pulses with the echoes of the past. And perhaps, one day, they will reveal their secrets in a way that transforms our understanding of the ancient world. Until then, the jade masks remain silent, their secrets buried within the stone. In the remote, windswept desert landscape of China's Qinghai province, nestled against the backdrop of the Mount Baigong Range, lies an oddity that has confounded explorers, archaeologists, and skeptics alike for decades. Scattered around the desolate area are a series of mysterious metal pipes, protruding from the earth, half buried in the sand or embedded in the rocky cliffs. Known as the Baigong pipes, this strange and seemingly out-of-place discovery has fueled numerous debates over their origins, leading some to suggest they are evidence of ancient technology far beyond anything we understand today. The Baigong pipes, first discovered in the 1990s, have baffled researchers with their remarkable craftsmanship and apparent age. They appear to be made of a metal alloy, and in some cases the pipes extend deep into the earth, their lengths running several meters underground, inaccessible to any surface excavation. The pipes themselves are circular and uniform in shape, with smooth, seamless joints that suggest an advanced engineering process, far more sophisticated than what one might expect from the relatively primitive tools known to have been available to ancient civilizations. What sets the Baigong pipes apart from any ordinary geological feature is their uncanny resemblance to man-made piping systems, such as those used for plumbing or even industrial purposes. In a region so isolated and undeveloped, the existence of such pipes raises a multitude of questions. How could these pipes have been created? And more intriguingly, what were they used for? The first reports of the Baigong pipes emerged in the early 1990s, after local residents brought attention to the strange formations near Lake Tuofeng, a saltwater lake nestled at the base of Mount Baigong. The pipes, seemingly emerging from the rocks and sand of the surrounding landscape, were unlike anything researchers had encountered before. The pipes ranged in size from small, narrow tubes to larger, hollowed-out cylinders. Some even seemed to extend deep into the earth, vanishing into the subterranean layers beneath the surface. In total, more than 80 separate pipe-like structures have been found scattered throughout the region, but what caught the attention of the international community were the metallic substances that the pipes seemed to be made of. These materials did not match any known natural alloys, nor could they be easily identified by conventional methods. In some cases, they appeared to be composed of a strange mixture of iron and other metals, the likes of which had not been documented in the archaeological or geological records. Some of the pipes were embedded deep into solid rock formations, and others appeared to be spread out along the surface of the land, crossing over the landscape as if they had been carefully placed there for a specific purpose. However, the most perplexing aspect of the Baigong pipes is their location. Situated in a remote area with no signs of advanced ancient settlements, there is no clear evidence that any known civilization could have had access to the technology necessary to craft such structures. So, how did these pipes come to be buried in the sand for millennia, and who created them? At first glance, some of the Baigong pipes might seem like an odd geological anomaly. The smooth, cylindrical shapes, along with the apparent absence of any manufacturing tools nearby, could suggest that the pipes were simply natural formations. Fossilized tubes and mineral deposits sometimes resemble man-made objects, and it's possible that these pipes are the result of erosion or other geological processes that have taken place over thousands of years. However, when researchers examined the pipes more closely, they found unnatural features that raised serious doubts about this hypothesis. Unlike natural rock formations, which tend to have irregular or jagged surfaces. The bygong pipes exhibit perfectly smooth and uniform shapes, a characteristic more fitting for manufactured objects than naturally occurring minerals. Further analysis revealed traces of metallic alloys within the pipes, suggesting they were made intentionally, perhaps for a very specific purpose. The local government and scientific community have offered explanations that propose a more conventional origin for the pipes. One of the prevailing theories is that the pipes were part of an ancient industrial system, potentially left behind by a lost civilization. Given the apparent uniformity and design of the pipes, it's reasonable to assume that they were constructed with some sort of advanced technology, possibly linked to ancient Chinese or Tibetan engineering traditions. However, this theory doesn't entirely resolve the mystery of who might have built these pipes, or why they were abandoned in such a remote area. No other signs of ancient industrial activity, like machinery or infrastructure, have been found nearby. In fact, the only other notable human-made artifacts discovered in the region are stone carvings that are likely associated with the early Bronze Age. So, could it be that the bygong pipes are much older than previously believed, perhaps even dating back to an unknown and highly advanced civilization? As is often the case with unexplained mysteries, the bygong pipes have attracted a wide range of fringe theories, the most fantastical of which suggest that the pipes may not have been created by humans at all. Some believe the pipes could be evidence of extraterrestrial technology, suggesting that alien visitors from another world may have built these structures as part of some ancient installation or base. The idea that aliens might have visited Earth thousands of years ago is, of course, a topic of much speculation, but the pipes' unusual precision and their appearance in such a remote location have led some to propose this theory as a potential explanation. Supporters of this hypothesis point to the pipe's unusual metallic composition as a possible indication of alien technology. Unlike anything found in the surrounding area, the material used in the pipes seems to have characteristics that cannot be replicated by any known ancient civilization. The fact that the pipes seem to have been deliberately placed within the landscape, rather than forming naturally, further fuels the theory that they might have been part of a larger, unknown extraterrestrial installation. Yet, while the idea of alien involvement is certainly intriguing, it remains highly speculative, and there is little concrete evidence to support it. Many scientists are cautious about jumping to such conclusions, emphasizing the importance of careful investigation and scientific rigor in understanding the true origins of these pipes. Another theory that has gained traction among researchers involves the idea that the bygong pipes could be remnants of a forgotten aspect of ancient Chinese technology. Some suggest that the pipes may have been part of a water management system, possibly used in ancient times for irrigation or other purposes. Ancient China was known for its innovative engineering feats, including the construction of sophisticated aqueducts, irrigation systems, and water mills. Could the pipes have been part of an early industrial effort to harness the power of water in this remote desert region? Others believe the pipes could be tied to a lost religious or cultural practice, perhaps linked to the Tibetan Buddhist traditions or the ancient Tibetan culture that once thrived in the region. Ancient Tibetan societies were known for their intricate and complex religious structures, many of which were thought to have incorporated advanced technologies and techniques, possibly even those that modern science has yet to fully comprehend. Could these pipes have had some spiritual or ceremonial significance, perhaps as part of a religious ritual system that is now lost to history? Despite decades of research and investigation, the mystery of the bygong pipes remains unsolved. While the mainstream explanations suggest that the pipes could be part of an ancient water system or industrial installation, the strange and precise craftsmanship of the pipes points to a more complex history. Whether they were created by an unknown civilization, used for ceremonial purposes, or were part of an advanced system of technology, we are left with more questions than answers. As the bygong pipes continue to intrigue those who visit the site, The possibility that they might contain clues to ancient knowledge or technologies remains tantalizing. Perhaps they hold the key to a lost civilization, one that predates everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. Or perhaps the pipes are a message, a trace of technology that was too advanced for its time, left behind by those who have long since disappeared. Whatever the truth may be, the mystery of the bygone pipes endures, inviting further investigation and speculation. And, as with so many of history's greatest enigmas, it leaves us wondering, what secrets still lie beneath the surface waiting to be uncovered?